Evening's work session. Today is Wednesday, June 5th. This is our first work session of the month of June. And before we get started on our robust agenda, we are going to start with a public hearing on the home application program. If I could have Chris Stetler come on up to the podium and tell us a little bit about the grant.
Please not call the meeting to order until after the public hearing.
Sorry, public hearing, calling to order. There you go.
They get funny about that in here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Some of you have been through this enough that you should know what we're doing. However, we will be requesting $250,000 from the Department of Community and Economic Development from federal home funds. These are funds that come from HUD, go through the state. The state has competitive application periods to award funds. The funds we're requesting will be used for our housing rehabilitation program. About a year ago, we did a change in the guidelines for the program, which allowed people to receive assistance more than once. Now, they have to have had the assistance at least more than 5 years ago. So, because we were getting calls from a number of people who still needed help, and the help they had received had been done long ago, and things that were working then are not working now. So we did a very small mailing to some people we knew had assistance some time ago. And the result of that has been we have received like 10 applications for assistance. The money we have left will allow us to do 2 to 3 houses. We have some home money left from our 2019 grant. We have some CDBG money left from our 2021 allocation. So it will cover maybe 2 to 3 houses. One of the things that has slowed things down considerably is this is a very costly area to do construction in. Our average cost used to be below $25,000. It's now at $40,406. A lot of times the houses that are coming into the program have a lot more wrong with them than some of our other houses did. So this would allow us to do at least 5 additional houses. When you have 10 applicants, it doesn't mean all 10 applicants are going to be judged eligible. We did an intake with someone today, found out he was ineligible. His brother had just moved in with him. So there were more people in the house, and the income in the house was higher. The program will not be involved in any kind of displacement of people or any kind of demolition of low-income affordable housing. This is something we have to say. It's part of the regulations. Applications are due on the 28th, and we can accept written comments until the 18th. So if anyone will ask for your questions and comments on this, and then if you think of something later on that you want an answer to, please just call the office or put something in writing and send it to us. So if you have any questions, be happy to try and answer them.
Do we have any public questions related to the home program? Any council questions related to the home program that Chris has presented?
We must have explained it to you all very well at some point. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
I do want to let you know that I learned at the conference that we are very fortunate to get this, because not every borough does.
We were very fortunate from the beginning of the home program. You had 2 consultants who thought, gee, this is a great place to spend some money. Yeah. And when I started here, we had like $600,000 in home money that nobody else had because nobody else knew how to apply for it. So we've just kept building on that, and we've been able to help a lot of people and let a lot of people stay in their homes, which is really important.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, that closes the public hearing on the home application. Thank you, Chris. Now I will call to order the official meeting for June's work session. Let's see. Let's start by a roll call this evening.
Councilmember Shimeleski.
Present.
Councilmember Cerna.
Here.
Councilmember Barton.
Here.
Councilmember Elam.
Here.
Councilmember Fry.
Here.
Vice President Kingsley.
Here.
President Sokolowski.
Here.
Mayor Aronson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, prior to our work session this evening, we did hold an executive session on personnel and property matters. As I stated earlier, we have a pretty robust schedule this evening, so we're going to jump right in and get started. First item on the agenda today is related to an interview for a vacancy for our Civil Service Commission. So at this, I will ask Daniel Swartley McArdle to come up to the podium. Hi, Daniel.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm just fine. How are you?
Very good, thank you. So this evening, you are applying for the Civil Service Commission?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what interests you in that role and how you came about applying?
Sure. Well, I'll start with the second question first and then kind of work my way back in. So I had the pleasure of serving with Stacy when I first came on the Planning Commission. I have since been on there for 5 years. This is actually the end of my 5th year, so I'll have to be like renominated at the end of this. But I've enjoyed it. I've lived here for about 6 or 7 years now. As I kind of came over when I stopped teaching at Rowan and I started working at GlaxoSmithKline. So I have since was there. I've since transferred over. I'm now at Merck now. But it's been an enjoyable time. So I've kind of happened to, keep my ears up for anything that sort of looks interesting. And this CVC, the Civil Service, the CSC rather, kind of piqued my interest. Because I had the pleasure of serving in the Army National Guard for 6 years as a combat medic, loved it, has since discharged out, but that kind of speaks close to me. So been a combat medic, really enjoyed it, really wanted to make sure to keep going, but also between, my teaching job still at Rowan and also my work commitments, I knew that I really couldn't necessarily take on any additional extra stuffs, as that fun sounds. But this is something that kind of works into my schedule pretty nicely. It speaks kind of close to home because not only did I do it, but my older brother is a Border Patrol agent up in Maine. My younger brother is a cop down in Smyrna, so this kind of speaks very close to home.
Great. Kelso, do you have any questions?
What's your top priority?
I want to make sure that the people that we're selecting into these positions are the best trained and the best equipped that we can get them to be, right? Whether that's making sure that we have, any grants that we're potentially eligible for, making sure we're actually going out and seeking them, and obviously in addition to, making sure that we're actually filling into council, kind of keeping our ears on the ground, but also just, soliciting feedback. Big fan of that, big fan of that close that circle type of a mentality. That's the type of thing, at least I felt like maybe I sort of brought that one to the Planning Commission. This seems like, maybe the next natural fit.
Any
I have
additional-
actually, it's less of a question for you, actually, more for Stephanie and Mike. Are we verified that someone can be on 2 different commissions at the same time?
I just, actually, believe it or not, she sent staff and put an email that we do have to look at our civil service regs. Some of them do provide that you can only serve, you can't serve on civil service if there is, if you're an appointed member of something else. And I would personally hate to lose Daniel from the Planning Commission, so we'll check that. It may not be in ours. I'm sorry, I didn't notice your name on the agenda soon enough to check it.
Hi, Mike.
But we'll check that out. There's a chance that Daniel will have to choose, but we'll figure that out before the next.
I think you are very qualified, obviously, so I just wanted to make sure we don't get you in some trouble. I don't want you to be in trouble and not be on either.
Oh, yeah, me neither.
We can have you on 2 even better. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, thank you, Daniel, for the interest.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
We'll keep you posted.
Yes, ma'am.
There is no vote this evening on this agenda item. All right, next item on the agenda is to consider appointing Obermeyer, Rebman, Maxwell, and Hippel LLP for our legal services as our Borough Special Counsel. So what I would be looking for this evening is a motion to appoint Obermeyer, Rebman, and Maxwell, and Hippel for the legal services for our Borough's Special Counsel.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is our presentations, and this evening we have a proclamation recognizing National Public Services Week. Mrs. Barton will read our proclamation and do our presentation.
Who's this going to? Hey, I'm fine. Recognizing May 19th to the 25th, 2024, as National Public Works Week. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, emergency management, and services that are vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the Borough of Conshohocken, and, excuse me, whereas Public Works personnel of Conshohocken oversees maintenance and repairs throughout all borough-owned facilities, works to preserve the quality of the borough's park system by maintaining all landscaping and exterior grounds, provides trash, recycling, yard waste, and snow removal services, and oversees street and stormwater maintenance throughout the borough. And whereas these essential services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of the public works professionals who work hard each and every day to keep our community safe and functioning. And whereas it is in the public interest for citizens to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2024 marks the 64th annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. And whereas the 2024 National Public Works Week theme is Advancing Quality of Life for All. Public Works contributes to advancing and enhancing our quality of life, no matter where we live in the world. Public Works professionals provide essential services that lead to healthier, happier, more vibrant communities. Now, therefore, the Borough of Conshohocken does hereby designate the week of May 19th to the 25th, 2024, as National Public Works Week. We urge all citizens to join in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our health and safety and advancing the quality of life for all, proclaimed by the Borough of Conshohocken on this 5th day of June of the year 2024.
Faces in the audience, so let's invite everybody up to take a group picture.
Mine's not that fancy.
Congratulations, guys. Okay, with that, I just need a motion to approve our proclamation 2024-05, recognizing May 19th through the 25th of 2024 as our National Public Works Week.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, everybody. All right, next presentation up on our agenda this evening is our stormwater management presentation. I'll invite Dan Ingram to the podium. He and his team can come up to the
Everybody,
front
I'm not going to be
and
fancy
present.
with whereas and now then and all that. It's my myself, Dan Ingram, that's William Gale, Jamie Schaefer couldn't be here. We're the three that are on the team. There's my introduction. We do an inspection process. We have a form. It's a little new, so we're going to work on that as we go through things. If you want to show the next one. That's the form. That's great. We're just looking for the condition of the inlet, what needs to be done, what type of pipe it is, where it's going, what outfall, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's all things that I'm not going to bore you with, but we document it. That's the most important thing. We document it. The equipment we have is the new stormwater vehicle, which is great. We did buy a confined space entry tripod. We did receive training for that tripod. Now, once we have it, they're going to come out and teach us how to use it because it's both ascending and descending and rescue. So there's two different winches and it's different. We have lifting accessories for the truck, and so we can set the inlets and the grates safely without, hopefully, Phil's fingers in the way. And basic hand tools, nothing great. I mean, so some of the training we've done, and we're looking forward to doing more, is flagging, confined space entry, I already mentioned. Drainage is key to the roads that last, because if the water gets under the blacktop, it destroys it. And we all attended the MS4 symposium, which gives us our credit for the year. These are some of the examples of things we're running into. This is a non-bicycle safe grate. It's obviously rotting, so that's been replaced. This is a situation on our own property with the salt shed on Elm Street, where we had a fissure or a scour, depending on what terminology you want to use, and we rectified the problem by placing boulders and smaller stone and smaller stone and smaller stone to support the wall there. This is an example of what we're looking at when we're out there. We see the rebar sticking out the top. It's in poor condition, and before, during, after type of thing. Setting a new inlet. These are some of the concerns we have. This is West Elm Street, Haynes Salvati Basin. That's the head wall that gets clogged. That's the pipe that it feeds. You can see there's a lot of debris in there. These are the type of things that we're going to try to address on our own, and if we can't, we'll obviously ask for assistance from an outside agency or the engineering, because it's hard to see in these pictures, but there is some displacement in those pipes, so we're going to keep an eye on that. It does drain. It's not clogged. We've since kind of built a little check dam to try to keep the smaller debris from off the cage. You can't tell there's a cage there, but there is. But that's just another example of what we do. This was a complaint received by the Grand that the inlet was clogged. Turns out the picture on the right is somebody decided to wash out their mixer, concrete mixer, into the inlet. So that was the result.
Wonderful.
That's since been rectified too. So now this is an ongoing thing with White Marsh Township.
Yep.
This is the outfall that carries most of the east side of Conshohocken, but it's in White Marsh.
Yeah.
And it also involves multiple property owners, both private and public. And I don't know, what's Conrail? Is that public? I don't know. Conrail public?
Yeah.
Okay. So what you're seeing on the left there is buildup because the trees and the overgrowth have created a backup. The pipe on the far right is what goes out to the river, but it also involves the septic tracts. There's a lot going on. We're working on it. I'll get back to you, I promise. But that's a big one. This is future stuff. These city type 1 and type 2 inlets that have the steel plates, but they're actually not in the street. They're actually in the right-of-way. I don't know what we're going to do with those. We're going to have to come up with a plan. That's part of what we will be doing in the wintertime, because obviously we're not pouring concrete.
Yeah.
So that's basically what we're dealing with. And that's just a little reminder that I was in an inlet in 2012. So,
Dan,
yes.
when I was watching you the other day, after you had dropped the prefab in there,
Mm.
the concrete that you were putting on
Yes.
to kind of seal it up, what is the life expectancy of that?
Well, I can tell you when I started here, that intersection did not have inlets. It was culverts at the time with plates, and we had to constantly be cleaning it because they always got clogged.
Yeah.
So I'm going to guess, I started here in '05, I'm going to guess they're probably 15 years old,
Okay.
and they were not in very good shape.
No, they weren't.
So what we're finding is the less flow there is, the more damage the structure deals with because of the salt. Where if water's rushing down the street, it's washing all the stuff away. It goes in the inlet. But the problem there was also, they use concrete block, like you would buy at Home Depot,
Oh, okay.
for what we refer to as the transition, grade transition from the inlet structure to the actual ring. And what happens is it absorbs water, and then it freezes and blows apart over time. So what we did is we went in and we poured concrete so that we don't have that issue, hopefully.
Okay.
We won't have that issue. But 15 years from now, I'm not going to be here, so. But we're trying to make it right. You know. He'll be here, but he'll be in charge by then, that's for sure. You're going to have the vest on.
You mentioned,
But that's basically it. I mean, I don't know if you have any questions, but.
you mentioned, I just wanted to make a statement. You mentioned fixing the non-bicycle safe inlets. We're having like a renaissance of kids riding bikes, at least where I'm from. And as someone who has a daughter who's not the best on two wheels right now, it's appreciated because that's little stuff makes a difference because a lot more kids, again, it's a good thing. They're riding their bikes around now. So just wanted to say thanks for that because that does actually mean a lot to the parents.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, there's obviously a liability issue involved. But we did a quick visual inspection when we first started, when the department was brand new. And we probably need 90 to 100 brakes replaced to make them all bicycle safe. But the problem is they're not cheap. So I'll be talking to you about the capital budget as far as that's concerned. But,
Doesn't come out of your pocket?
I'm sorry?
Doesn't come out of your pocket?
I hope not. I better get a raise along with it. That's all I gotta say.
So Dan, this team is basically subcontracted by the authority. Can you
Yes.
tell us how you're interacting with the authority?
Yes, thank you for the reminder. In the one picture there with the displaced pipe from Haynes Salvati, I've been in touch with Ed from the Sewer Authority about using their old camera equipment. This also ties in with the tripod equipment that we bought because we don't want to get in a pipe and find out that there's some kind of dangerous gas in there without having some way to extract Billy or Jamie, because I'm not getting down there. I've been there, done that. It's enough, as you can see from the picture. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is we're trying to get that equipment working up and running again so that we can use it when we need to and not have to pay somebody to do it or bother them to do it. And it's just sitting there, so we might as well use it. Other than that, I mean, Ed seems thrilled. I've known Ed since I was a kid, so, you know, it's easy talking to Ed. It's not a big deal.
So these reports that you are filling out goes to the authority to be uploaded to the state, or how does that work? How's the reporting structure working for the MS4?
That is, if I may answer the question, that is something I would like to learn with Karen. Like, how do we report to the next level as far as from the borough, us to the borough, and then borough to whomever?
So the relationship through the agreement with the sewer authority is that the borough is still the holder of the MS4 permit. The sewer authority is a co-permittee on the MS4 permit. So Karen and her team are still compiling the annual MS4 requirements. We're still the holder of the permit itself. So all the data that Dan and Billy and Jamie are collecting will stay housed at the Borough of Conshohocken. And then we have an obligation in our agreement with the sewer authority on an annual basis, just like they have a responsibility to provide data the other way, is to provide that data collectively, so that both entities, the owner of the system and the operator of the system, have coordination of that information.
Thank you.
I'm really hoping that the GIS system is going to streamline a lot of that process so that we can stand there and just input the information and it'll do what it's got to do. I mean,
We are in the, so I think
If not-
for Dan's point, so Dan was instrumental in getting this whole team up and running. Council allocated the resources required in order for us to start compiling the GIS system. Once that tool is complete, it's going to get turned over to Dan's team. They're going to get the training they need, and administratively as well, in order for it to operate. And it should make both of your lives easier. That's the hope. It will also be able to be utilized in a multitude of different facets. So it is underway, and that will probably be a great tool that gets turned over to you at the start of 2025. And there'll be training as well in terms of processes as we work through all the nuances with the sewer authority.
Council, have any other questions for Dan and his presentation?
I do, Dan. You clean out the inlets, but do you also clean out those, I don't know what you call them, the tunnels that go under streets? I'm thinking specifically on East 7th and Howell and East 7th and Wells. There's just, it comes down and it goes under the street.
yeah, yes. We refer to those as culverts.
The
Whether
culverts.
it's proper or not, I don't know, but we call them culverts. Yes, we would. That's also in the program that they're working on now. They're going to replace all that. But yeah, tomorrow we can go out there and
I know the
make
one
sure that-
on East 7th in front of the house at 149, that's just stuffed with debris. I mean, it's actually roots in there too.
Okay. Yeah, we'll certainly take a look at it tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
I think the only thing I want to point out is you're building a brand-new program from scratch. It wasn't like you were handed a manual to say, go and do it. So congratulations on getting the team up and running, and actually we're seeing you out in the streets doing things. So kudos to all of you for getting it up and running, and we are looking forward to hearing about the optimization as you go on in this program. So thank
We
you very
definitely
much to
appreciate it, right?
all of
Thank
you.
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda for presentations is a presentation related to our Conshohocken cab shuttle program. Shauna Weissall from our operations team, she's our executive assistant. She is at the podium, so Shauna, do you want to go through Country Cab and where we're at?
Yes, good evening, everyone, ladies and gentlemen of the council. This is a little bit of an update on the cab, but also an idea that we have for the cab to continue its success into the future. So currently the cab runs the same route until 11 p.m. most days of the week. It runs Wednesday through Saturday on a constant loop schedule. Sunday it stops a little bit earlier. The route that we chose was reasonable and effective for us because it does stop at the shopping center in White Marsh that houses both a grocery store and an urgent care facility, which for a lot of the time I think are obvious needs to residents of our borough. However, because we go there, the loop itself right now is taking anywhere between 45 minutes and a little over an hour to be completed. So, going into our recommendation, the ridership reports that we get break down who is riding the shuttle, when they're riding the shuttle, what stops they are utilizing, and 80% of that ridership are adults. So that counts out anyone under 18 who ride for free, as well as seniors who also ride for free. So the bulk is what we expected it to be, that adult population using this to get around town. Now, we are receiving feedback from that same population that because of the length of this constant loop, it doesn't necessarily make sense all day, every day to hit all of those same spots. For instance, Giant's not even open at 11 p.m., so to take a shuttle to Giant at 11 p.m. and take those who are trying to use it to go to and from dinner that far out of the way is making people a little wary about relying on the shuttle for that purpose. So out of the current 20 shuttle stops, you'll see them listed there. 9 of them are residential communities and 8 are restaurants or downtown attractions. This is exactly what we were hoping, that we have these residential communities, we have these complexes that house many of our citizens. We can take them around town without them needing to move their cars. This alleviates a lot of the concerns about traffic and parking. The proposed change would eliminate the entire section in blue. So all this eliminates are apartment complexes that exist outside of the borough and that stop at the shopping center at Giant. This still takes you to every single business within the borough and every apartment complex and hotel within the borough. So our proposition, which we're still working with GVF and Transnet to confirm where the actual turn would be, is instead of going all the way to North Lane, after they stop over at Bar Luca, the shuttle would go up. We're proposing 9th Avenue, since there is the stop sign at the end, to turn right back onto Fayette and go to Stone Rose and continue the loop from there. Now, this is based on feedback that we have received in the office, as well as feedback given directly to the shuttle drivers by riders of the shuttle. The most popular days for cab usage have steadily been Friday and Saturday. The most popular days in each month for cab usage has always been the day with the best weather. So when there's a nice sunny day, we do have people who are trying to utilize this service to stop around town at different places, to go and grab a brunch with their friends, to explore what we have to offer in our downtown commercial area. So crossed out on this slide are the stops that would be taken away. As stated, they all exist outside of the borough, most of them being residential complexes, and then the Giant. This would create a perfect loop of simply the downtown of Conshohocken, which I think is what we are hoping to highlight. It still maintains all of our residential communities have a stop, and all 8 of our restaurants and attractions on the stop list are still serviced by the shuttle. It will significantly shorten the overall length that it takes to make the loop, which I think will result in a lot more ridership, but also the frequency of the shuttle stops will help whoever's already riding. I rode the shuttle myself home from a dinner at Bar Sarah, and you really notice when you are on one of those later stops how going all the way out through North Lane up to the Giant and back down all the way up there before it even becomes Fayette takes you so far out of the borough in the evening that it doesn't seem like the smartest choice. So I understand why we've had that feedback, because I have myself experienced it. Any questions?
Shauna, I'm sorry. Go ahead. This is just removing these in the evening. You still
In
have the
evening.
daytime.
Our discussion with Transnet and GVF has been that after 6 p.m. we would do this. Even if on a trial basis throughout the summer, I'm expecting that, since the feedback and the stats have shown that days with nice weather, days people want to go out and do things, the shuttle is much more popular. I think the shuttle will gain popularity in the summer. That being said, we also had a lot of interest in the shuttle at our recent car show. We sold many 10-trip tickets to the shuttle at that event, and we gave away some free ride tickets for new riders to give it a chance too. So it would be a nice time, I think, to try something different.
Sean, on East 9th Avenue, even though there's no attractions there, I've had a lot of residents that live there that would like the shuttle to pick them up personally. Do you think you would be able to have some stops, like at a couple blocks on East 9th to pick up residents?
I think that GVF and Transnet would be very open to that. There is really no stop in the residential areas on the avenues as of right now. And someone who is, especially further down the East End, is not going to walk all the way up to the 8th and Fayette stop. That's not going to be as convenient for them. So since we're cutting out all of that, I don't see why we couldn't build in a stop at the center of that street. One thing that I think is important to note that is not advertised, the shuttle drivers will stop to let anyone off the shuttle at any stop. So if there is a stop sign or a red light and someone is riding the shuttle, they can get off. I was able to disembark at 6th Avenue in Fayette, although the scheduled stops are 8th and Fayette and 4th and Fayette. So that does help at least with getting home. But if we want to talk about putting a stop in for riders to embark on the shuttle on 9th, I don't see why they wouldn't be open to that.
Thank you.
Can I ask the stop 17 and 18, First and Fayette and Sora West Plaza? Was there any talk that that's fairly redundant in the sense that like First and Fayette is like it's very close to that area?
Yeah, there was a little bit of talk of that. The thing is, the Soar West Plaza stop is actually on the further end where the hotel entrance is, and that was something that was requested by the hotel. The First and Fayette stop is meant to service not just Nudi's Cafe, but Great American Pub, Flanagan's Boathouse, anything further up that side there. And there just wasn't, traffic-wise, another place for the shuttle to stop in that block that made sense. But this is all open to feedback and discussion and review. This is the first of, I think, a few changes we may end up trying to add to the shuttle program. So that is feedback that I think is, we are open to and receptive to.
Any other questions? Thank you, Shauna. I think this is great. I think what we're demonstrating is we start with a program. We start with the best intentions. We listen to the feedback of our residents, and we make adjustments based on the feedback. And I think you're demonstrating the first adjustment based on the feedback of our residents. So thank you very much. Okay. What I am looking for from Shauna's presentation is a motion to authorize the proposed adjustment to the cab schedule for our evening hours based on the riders' feedback.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda is land use matters, public hearings, and ordinances. Before we get started on this section, I'm going to open up public comment for this discussion on item A only. Does anyone from the public have any comment related to the discussion on the future public safety services facility? Please come to the podium, say your name. We are going to hold these comments to 2 minutes.
Oh, that's no problem.
Okay.
You're just talking about discussion of the public services facility. You're not talking
Just
about the 1
section
through
A.
5.
Correct.
You're looking to do this to the E.F. Moore property? Is that what this is about, where we're at right now?
That is the property that we will be discussing this evening, yes.
And there was no other property that could bring in a revenue to Conshohocken as opposed to building a brand-new site? I'm just asking, figuring it out.
So we're going to listen to the presentation, and then perhaps that will answer some of the questions that you have. But I can't say that we've done a whole lot of research in what the question is that you're asking right at this moment. We can take that question, write it down, and then see if what we're going to hear tonight answers any of that, or if we need to do further research on that.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Any other? Hi, Mayor.
Hello, Mary Tiernan, 1016 Harry Street. And this might be addressed in the, hello everybody, this might be addressed in the presentation. I'd just like to know more about the public service demand for it, what the expectation is in use, incorporating Narberth ambulance at that, what prompted it now. I guess we're not talking about cost concerns, that'll be after the presentation, is that my understanding?
I think we're going to hear about
Yeah.
how we got to where we are today, and then from there, I think
Yeah, that's okay. I
has
just
a lot of
wasn't
work. Has a lot of work around it. I think.
It's you know, very exciting news. I look forward to this. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Okay. So the item on the agenda is the discussion on our future public safety services facility. And at that, I would like to introduce Kristen Davis, Leo Costello, Calvin Perlman, Andrew Carlin, Bob Weber, Bill Weber, and they will discuss the future services and facilities related to the emergency management services, EMS, and fire services, it looks like.
So just to introduce everyone this evening, we have Kristen Davis, who is the president of Conshohocken Fire Number 2, We have Leo Costello, who is the vice president of number 2 Firehouse. We have Calvin Perlman, who is the deputy fire chief for the Borough of Conshohocken and also a member of number 2. We have Andy Carlin, who is the president of Washington Fire Company. We have Bob Weber, who is the deputy chief of operation for Narberth Ambulance, and Bill Weber, who is the assistant chief of operations for Narberth Ambulance. So we will turn it over to all of you. Calvin, you're at the podium,
Yeah.
so are you the lucky one who's starting?
I'm just going to get started. I just wanted to reach out. I'm filling in for Tim tonight. He's unfortunately couldn't make it. He's in Wisconsin doing the final inspection for our new fire truck that's coming in the next 30 days. So he would have loved to have been here, but we're all here to represent. So first and foremost, I just want to recap from last year's statistics of our call volume. We did run 654 fire calls. The fire department responded to 191 QRS calls for a total of 845 calls. Currently, the fire department has 45 certified firefighters. There's 8 career staff in that number, 5 which are part-time and 3 which are full-time. Talking about our logistics, we are operating out of 2 facilities. One is the Washington Fire Company facility and the 6 bays down there, and then the second facility as Conshohocken Fire Company number 2's facility on 819 Fayette Street. So we have a lot of apparatus between both locations. Both are important for our operations overall. We've seen an increase of call volume and call type with the increase in population, and we're trying to adapt to that. So I want to turn it over to the fire companies individually to discuss their current facilities and give a little bit more background on that.
I will go first. So some of the issues that we run in with our current facility, well, first is that us as a company and us as the fire services for the borough are expanding. We've had an increase in membership since the beginning of our membership recruitment and retention program in 2021. And over the past few years, with that membership and our current membership, they have been aggressively learning and taking on new certifications. Specifically, the advanced level of Swift water rescue certifications, ice water rescue, advanced elevator rescues, high angle and low angle rescues, and rope rescue operations. With all of those certifications become more technical equipment that we need to store. And not just the one piece of equipment, there are some, like with rope, where we would need backup and storage. Because some of those items, once they're used, you can't use them unless they get recertified or replaced. Currently, storage at our station is at a maximum. In 2022, we completed a very minor renovation in the engine room and the meeting room area to try and expand storage space in the engine room, and we made a small storage closet in our meeting room kind of / common area room. And currently, it's only been able to accommodate so much equipment, and we're currently at our maximum. With the goal of that minor renovation, we also wanted to try and to attract members to be in the stations more often. So that our response time, we have crews in, and our response time can be reduced somewhat. That goal with that renovation has been somewhat successful. But there's only so much room there that they can use. Not only has our company operations have expanded, but the department operations have expanded as well. The fire department career staffing operate mostly out of our station, and they currently don't have their own space or offices that they use. They have a workstation that is in our boardroom area. Normally, we don't have to use that area and that room at the same time, but they should have their own space and their own area to work out of. And our current space wouldn't be able to accommodate kind of any further expansion of career staff or utilizing any overnight staffing. We do have bunk rooms, but it is a very tight room, and to try and use that all the time would be very tight for career and volunteers to use. And collectively, the borough and the fire department and Narberth Ambulance have been working recently to strengthen our relationship together and have been training together since introducing this QRS response program. So it's kind of with Narberth being down on Hector Street and Washies being down on Elm Street and we're on Fayette Street, there's always this coordination between all the different parties to try and host a training at one site. If there was one site together, that would be a much easier process to accommodate. The company has currently explored expanding our facility on our current property. Expanding on our current property would reduce or eliminate any parking that we already have, forcing our members to park on the street, which we do not want. Expanding on our current property would also not provide the required relief. We can only expand so far, and that wouldn't provide much more storage or rooms to accommodate our needs and the department's needs. Acquiring a neighboring property and expanding would not be a financial responsible decision. Undertaking a large financial project like this would require us to financially look at our budget and maybe roll back some items, some line items like purchasing equipment, equipment and apparatus maintenance, and other operational costs. We have explored some grant opportunities through the Commonwealth, but they don't really assist on purchasing property to expand. And additionally, most of these grants, you do have to put up some sort of cash, which we don't we're not in that position to satisfy that requirement. And I'm going to turn it over to Leo Costello, our Vice President, and he's going to talk about more of our building.
Okay, when we looked at the building and looked at the expansion, the building is 20 years old, and currently we're at a point where we need some stuff that is more than just routine maintenance. And while we have done some renovations, as Kristen said, this is not accomplishing some of the goals. When we looked at the cost of mezzanining the rear or expanding by buying property, financial burden was several $1 million, something the company doesn't have the financial depth to do. Just looking at the building now, some of the upgrades that need to be done, we were advised by our HVAC contractor that in the next 2 to 3 years we should be looking at replacing that. The front apron needs to be redone, that it's gotten worn down. On our roof, the roof seams and gutters need to be treated. This is all stuff that we're looking at on a 20-year-old building. And looking at equipment, as times change, there's more requirements placed on us about taking care of equipment and gear. Currently, all our turnout gear, when we go on a call and people are exposed, all that gear has to be sent out to a third-party contractor. It's a week turnaround. They're about the fastest, and they're a week turnaround. If we had the ability to provide that in our station, I could do that turnaround in a matter of hours instead of days. So I essentially, when I have gear contaminated, I could have 2, 3, 4 guys that I'm essentially losing for several days because I don't have equipment for them. Same way with hose or other things like this that have to be cleaned. Currently, we're cleaning that outside. There is some requirements coming about where that runoff is going to have to be captured. To buy the extractor needed to clean that equipment, it's actually a sizable piece of machinery. Our building doesn't have the capability to house that. So these are some things that we're looking at moving forward that we have to consider.
Andy, you want to talk about your building a little bit?
What they all said? I brought Joe Wertz and Andy D'Angelo with me. They were a big part of the building. Before 2005, we got together as a membership. We're like, we need to do something with this property. So 2006, 2007, we applied for a 2% loan through USDA and was approved for $1.1 million and expanded the building. So we went from 3 bays, which as number 2's has now the issue, to 6 bays, as you guys see today. So when we went up and decided, you know what, we'll do the 6 bays and then go a second story to match where we used to have our banquet facility and all that stuff, we put in a full kitchen. We put in 2 bedrooms. One is for female, if needed, would be career staff and/or volunteer female. And then the second bedroom has 3 sets of bunk beds in there, so you can sleep 6. Again, with the full kitchen and all that, that's what we thought about in the future. You know what I mean? Because there was bigger fire truck, more equipment, and you know we have a training room / meeting room, an exercise room, and stuff like that. To you know, a TV room for the members. So we're kind of landlocked now, as you can see. I mean, you know, everybody's around. We can't do anything else anymore. But we had a great agreement with the borough, and we are, you know, had the facility to store the borough equipment, so it's ready to go at a moment's notice. You know, it's you know, the diesels are plugged in, so you know things are warm, so they're ready to go. Talking with Ray, we thought about maybe if the department and with number twos wanted to bring all their water rescue equipment down at Washies. They're a block away from the water. We also talked to Ray too about maybe, I know they have, you guys have some smaller vehicles with small pumps on them. Figure with 98% of the parking garages are down the lower end, minus the one that's up at 9th and Harry, which is on the first level there, so you can kind of walk off the street. But having that equipment close to them structures, if, you know, God forbid you get a car fire in there or something like that, I mean, the sprinklers will work, but that's just a temporary thing to get you to safety. You know what I mean? So, as Washies, as the president and members, I'm on board with this project. I think it would be great for the future of the department. I think if you build the best, you'll get the best. And if you can, you know, just have so many things where you can entertain the best candidates for it, if the borough decides to go to a full-time department. I mean, our issues, and I won't lie to you, our issues is personnel. Now, we have the facility, but I don't have the personnel. You know, we spend $5,000 a year for recruitment and retention mailings out. I mean, with the grant and everything right down the street from us, we got nobody. Nobody wanted to join. I mean, and it's hard, and these guys do it. I mean, I've been doing it for 41 years. I was an acting chief for 6 months, I was a deputy for 21 years, and I've been since 1981. But our thought was, how we built our building was for the future of the department. And then it just, it worked out well with Keystone and his dream down there and all that stuff, where we were able to hop on and sell part of that stuff and, you know, bring it to what you see today.
We actually have some pictures that will show you of how instrumental Washies is in terms of allowing the borough to have that space to store our emergency equipment, but it is maxed out, so we'll show you that picture. But yes, Andy,
we are a person at the bubble here. I mean, I do feel bad for for the Conshohocken number two, because they are really, you know, at their wits' end with that. You know what I mean? We got a little bit of room. I don't know, maybe you guys get patrol bicycles or something. Might be able to hang them from the rafters. But, yeah, like I said, our agreement, we're on board. You guys got anything?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bob?
Ready for me?
You want to introduce yourself?
Yes. My name is Bob Weber. I'm the Deputy Chief of Narberth Ambulance. Bill here, who's the assistant. Narberth Ambulance started in 1944 providing emergency medical services to Narberth Borough and Lower Merion Township, and this year we're celebrating our 80th anniversary. In 1999, then Conshohocken's Pleasant Valley Ambulance Service merged with Narberth, bringing Conshohocken into the very first ALS service. Back then, it was just a BLS service that, no advanced care. And with bringing that service to the borough, what we did was we eliminated the times from 15 to 30 minutes for the ambulance arrival to minutes that the ambulance was arriving, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to the residents and visitors of Conshohocken. And with that, we've become the premier ambulance service here in Conshohocken Borough for the past 25 years. In 2001, we broke ground at the 500 Apple Street. At this location, the ambulances were a lot smaller. We were able to house 2 ambulances and 1 crew at the time. It's not really working out at that time right now. The place is really busting at the seams there. We can put 1 ambulance in there, and 1 generally sits outside. We can't really manage around the ambulances or to restock them. We have to pull them out of the bays and put them out on the apron and restock them there in bad weather and things like that. So it's not always as helpful, and We have one of the ambulances sitting outside right now. With today's complex emergencies and longer wait times at area hospitals, our paramedics have to treat many of the seriously ill and injured victims in the ambulances. The first 15 minutes of an emergency room is there in the ambulance. With the complexity of these emergencies, we're required to carry a tremendous amount of equipment to manage many of the emergencies that we face here with the river, with all kinds of different buildings and structures that they have here. With that being said, the cost of a fully equipped ambulance is well over $450,000. And those ambulances have to get traded out every other year. So, we have pretty high expenses down there. With over 750 calls that are coming out of that Conshohocken station, Narberth Ambulance is an organization built on countless hours of work from the volunteers and career staff. Here in Conshohocken, we have 3 volunteers. 2 of them are sitting here, and we have one other one that spends a tremendous amount of time here. We don't have the crew quarters to bring the volunteers in here. We have just enough crew quarters to have the crew that's working just that one ambulance, so we don't really have the space for those extra people. Saying that, our current station has really reached the max capacity with only the one room for the crew and just one ambulance that can comfortably be fitted in there. We have no training space, no exercise space. We're seeing an influx of residents, which increases the call volume. Every year we are continuing to train the residents here. Last year we started to train the residents in Narcan training, blood screening. We've trained the employees of the borough with first aid and CPR, stop the bleed. We have a very strong membership drive here in Conshohocken, and really it has to do a lot with the borough and a lot with the borough and the way that they put our information out there and really start to bring Narberth Ambulance at the forefront with your website and all the other things that we do here. The cost that we have to maintain that building is around $5,000 a month, and it brings out about $60,000 a year. A lot of those expenses would be eliminated or reduced or something like that. And we really feel that this complex will help emergency services to grow into the future.
Bill? I think Bob hit most of the stuff, but the only couple things that I will add is, one is, as like the fire company, we are a nonprofit. In the weather emergency with the hurricane a few years ago, I was assigned to obviously stay here overnight. I stayed at the Marriott in West Conshohocken because we had no space in our facility. I only say that is because we're busting at that. We don't have the extra personnel that can stay on location, stay somewhere that's warm, comfortable, and good for us. And a thing. Training. The only other thing that I will say is training. We set up a training for both fire companies to come in and look at everything in the back of our ambulance. It took us literally 3 months to just do that. It was really a simple process. It took us 3 months is because something came up, then another thing came up, so we had to cancel and then push it on to the next training. Being in the same facility will eliminate all of that. You just go over 2 bays and say, how do you take that stretcher out? Where is the monitor on that truck? Where is this? Where is that? You're right there. And that's a great asset for the residents of Conshohocken to be able to get that. So.
Okay. Could I ask a question? Just from what I'm hearing, these 3 facilities are all private ventures. Who owns your buildings?
We own, the membership owns it.
So your volunteer fire department membership owns your building?
Yes.
So you have all the expenses of the
I'm
upkeep?
CEO, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Number 2?
Yes, yeah, same thing for us, yeah.
Same thing. And
We don't quite own our building yet. We still have a mortgage on it.
Okay.
Right, but the borough doesn't own it, I think.
The borough does not own
Yeah,
it.
Madam President, we're mortgage-free, we own the structure, we own the land.
Okay.
And you could sell it any time if you felt like it.
But I don't want to.
I know, but you,
I like to build it 41 years.
yeah,
With you guys and go from there, maybe sell it then.
and that's true for all three facilities. That
What's
it's
that?
owned, all three facilities are owned by themselves, and
Yes,
they
ma'am.
can sell them
Yes,
at any point.
Yes.
Okay.
So even if there was a new president next year or a new member,
Right.
it's still we own the building. And
Thank
it's,
you.
debt-free.
So what would be the plan if this acquisition came to fruition for number 2, Narberth Ambulance with their existing properties?
Well, we would stay the way we are. I mean, I talked with Ray numerous times about it, so we would still store the emergency vehicles at Washies. Again, if they, and the department chief and Ray, or, the deputy can switch things out, and stuff like that. Back in the past, if Narberth needed something, it was a snow night or something, they could pull into our building. So our building is open. The Conshohocken number 2 members have access to our building and key fobs and all that stuff. So we're wide open, you know what I mean? But I'd like to continue with our agreement with Stephanie and Ray to just house and have the equipment, even the support equipment, the trailers and the boat, stuff like that, to be part of the department. And I want our facility to be part of the department and the borough, our facility, 100%.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I said, what would be the plan with the property, since they're owned by you all? If this acquisition were to go through, what would
So
happen with number 2?
We would move in and we would potentially sell our property.
Same for the ambulance.
So we'd have one on either, each end of the borough would have a facility then.
Yep. And your police
A
department's in the
Washies
middle.
and
Yep.
then the other property.
Yep.
And like you said, we interact, and if they,
Right.
say if they got to do a ladder test and they need it down there on our apron, or it's 100% open. However they would like to direct the equipment.
How long have you guys been talking about doing something like this together? Is this just something that popped up, or? What was that?
About 25 years.
This is not something
No,
that's been
I mean-
talked about several times in the past.
I think a lot of municipalities in this area, please correct me if I'm wrong, or it's combining fire companies. It's all to them it's brand new, but for us it's not. I mean, we've been a department for 50 years or more,
More than that, yeah.
so we've been together. It's always said, hey, when the whistle blows, boom, it's Conshohocken Fire Department. It's not Washies, not number 2, not number 2, it's not Washies. Now, because of manpower and retention and recruitment, and nobody wants to do it anymore, other area fire companies are starting, well, you gotta, maybe come together, like down in Delaware County, come together. This department's been doing it for 50 plus. We're one department under one chief for the last 50 years. I've been there 41, so I know it's been that long. So.
Makes it easy.
But Steph, we thought about that back in 05 and 06, on what you see today to add.
Can you talk about, I think I know the answer to this, but I'd like to hear each group say it. What do you, I hear you talk about struggling for membership, but what do you think the effect will be by being under one roof?
So I'll jump in.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, I mean, right, positive, negative, anywhere?
I think it helps tremendously. Right now, we have, I would say, the best equipment, the best, trucks, the best apparatus, the best gear. Right now, we just don't have the best facility to house it all. And I think that this will help us recruit more members. This will help us retain more members. We'll be able to have a facility where they can, have workstations. If they work from home, they can come work at the firehouse. We don't have that currently. It's a 6-foot folding table in the back lounge area that people use. One roof helps us tremendously.
What are we seeing on the screen right now?
That's our radio
That's our
room.
radio room
Oh, no,
and
yeah.
our janitor's closet.
That's where we wash our water rescue gear after incidents. It's also if we do come back from a fire call, from a fire itself, and we need to decontaminate quickly, we will use our washers. If we have the ability to send it out for cleaning, like Leo had said, we will send it out for cleaning. But sometimes we don't have that ability to go down or lose a member because their gear is out for cleaning. So we have to do what we have to do. The dryer, our washer, I think we've had for 15,
At least
20
15
years.
maybe more.
It works, but it's not ideal for what we're starting to face with carcinogens and safety for our members. So.
So we did, actually.
Go ahead, Andy.
We have the room, like I know, the chief has an office down our place along with the battalion. So we do have offices on the first floor of our structure with a bathroom. One day I would like to put a shower in there, maybe. But yeah, I mean, we're starting to bust out a little bit too.
There's a picture up on the screen.
What's that?
Yeah, right now we have our UTV. We have 2 fire department UTVs, 1 EMS specific. We have 3 boat trailers. One of our brand new boat trailers is up in the top right corner. We're busting at the seams down there. We're going to have to probably put our utility up at number 2's out on the front apron because the new engine's coming in, and unfortunately there's not a bay to store that down there currently with our boat setup. So we're trying to shuffle things around to make it work. There's a need for the equipment that we have given our increased call volume and increased call type. We just have to work to house it properly, and we think this new facility will obviously address a lot of this concern.
So you guys are the life-saving expertise. Some would say you guys have a lot of toys. Well, how would you answer that you have a lot of toys?
Thank God.
And why do you say that?
Because I just think, like the Borough of Conshohocken, the tools we have is the best of the best. And it's supplied by you guys, girls and stuff like that. I just think when you can roll with the best stuff that's ready to go at the minute's notice for your residents or visitors, I think that's dynamite.
It is. We're very self-sufficient in what we're capable of doing, which it allows us to answer calls a lot quicker, and we don't have to rely on outside resources as much if we have those tools at our fingertips to be able to respond and go into service quickly.
I mean, through the years, we have housed Lincoln's vehicles, we have housed, Barron Hill's vehicles that they were getting ready to sell and stuff like that, so, but, I mean, it's just having our own equipment now, and like you guys not depending on everybody. I mean, you saw our mutual aid and all that stuff, but depending on our own equipment that our own people can learn off, and also like the chief's doing now, and these guys put that engine together from, Wisconsin. That's a cool toy.
So can I ask a follow-up? Go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So we had that hurricane a couple of years ago. How self-sufficient were we during that hurricane, and how much more self-sufficient are we now if something like that were to happen again with the amount of flooding we had downstairs?
Immensely more self-sufficient. That we kind of learned, we've known for years that Conshohocken floods last. Everybody floods around us. And that only proved that when we got to the point that we were flooding, it was very, very hard for us to get help. And we realized then if that's really what started pushing us towards putting our own Swiftwater team together in-house, which comes with an immense amount of equipment. Carrying 4 boats, carrying all the suits, having 20-some-odd people certified. There's a lot of equipment that goes into that.
The requirement for the Type 1 Swiftwater team that we were just completed our certification with, it's immense. I mean, you could have 1 dedicated truck just to that amount of equipment. Now, fortunately for us, with this additional trailer that we just received, we're able to deploy in different directions. We were bound to 1 location when we would pull up on, Washington Street where it was flooded. We can only go into 1 location. Now we're able to break out, we can go down to Cherry Street, we can be at Harry Street, we can be at different crossings. We'll be at the new crossing by Matson Mill now. So it allows us to be a little bit more diverse and handle some of these incidents quicker and be ready for them.
Leo, explain what do you mean that we were the last ones to get help or we didn't get any help? Can you explain that a little bit?
We didn't get any help.
But we were the last one, last ones.
When flooding occurs, the communities around us flood first. White Marsh floods, Plymouth floods. Conshohocken floods last, and it has to do with the structure of the banks here, the amount of rise you have to see in the water before it actually comes over and spills the bank here. what occurs is the other fire companies, Plymouth, White Marsh, they're getting deployed first, they're already seeing rescues. By the time their men are exhausted or already committed. So for us to get help, it's thinner. We don't see, you're not getting a rush of people or getting them quickly.
And county resources are usually tied up in other areas of the county that don't see flooding as frequent, and they don't have the equipment at all to be able to handle it. So those resources aren't usually available to us, so we have to be self-sufficient with what we're seeing.
So we were kind of caught in between, and now we take that proactive movement to make sure that we can take care of ourselves down the road. Excellent.
When the flooding, you say boys with toys or toys, but during the flood, the two Radnor Township and Plymouth, or I'm sorry, White Marsh, both brought high rescue or high water vehicles into town in order to help us all facilitate what was going on.
We actually
out in
had
the river.
we had Radnor, and then we also had Delaware County's special ops truck that was more of a, I think it was police vehicle. Now we're fortunate enough to have our own high water vehicle to be able to, it's really just reacting a lot faster to the incident, and we're able to respond, get there quicker, and stop that incident from expanding even further, becoming more technical, more or less.
My point in that really is when you say with toys, I understand what that means, but you have these assets right here in this town, which is huge.
How do you, sorry, Ralph, how do you think this goes along with what we are expecting with the growth in population and this facility that we're adding? So we're having a discussion about bursting at the seams, I think someone said. I'm assuming we're not at an unsafe situation, but we're also expecting over the next 3, 4, 5 years to see some have projected as much as a 30% growth in population. So this facility that we're thinking about, this space that we're thinking about, does this fit in line, do you think, with your experience in a growth in population?
Yeah, I absolutely see it. I mean, we're currently at the point where we obviously want to grow the department with the growth of the population as well, both career and volunteer. And we're currently at the point, I mean, I can speak for number twos, we don't have the gear space currently for new membership. We're in gear bags that are stacked. I'm going to repeat it again. We're busting at the seams with what we have, and we have to be able to grow based on the the demand of the population increasing as well.
So, did you?
No,
want
I'm good, thank you.
Play it out. Land acquisition doesn't go through. Whatever happens, nothing happens. What happens after that for you all?
We're going to stay steady course with the borough. And, how we are down at Washington, we're going to keep that way.
I think we're all prepared to continue to see this project come to fruition, whether it's at the current parcel or another parcel.
I hope it does. As a resident, taxpayer, whatever, I hope it does. Like I've always said, you want to leave it better than when you got it. You know what I mean? So I'm behind it.
Hey, Calvin,
behind it.
sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. You said you'd still keep looking for
Absolutely.
It's an absolute.
It's an absolute need for us right now.
Okay.
So, and we would love to have the opportunity to be together with Norwood.
You're the same. You're in the same boat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why is this specific property so attractive?
I think it'll
Size and availability.
correct.
Is
I think
it not, I mean, I think it was kind of brought up during the comments earlier. It was like, do we not have some other place in the borough that we might be able to do this?
So we discussed the option with even Washi's facility. We respond to 845 calls a year. 845 times that fire truck hits that intersection, hits that Elm and Fayette intersection at the bridge. Every time we hit that intersection, it locks out 3 lights. The traffic flow there, it would cause so many issues there. Same thing with the ambulance. Your call volume is at what? 1750. So,
And with the 30% increase, we expect that.
certain locations will be beneficial for us that we can respond quickly. We can respond to mutual aid a little bit faster, and still, we're a 1 square mile town. Whether we're on one end or the other, we can still provide the same service at the same speed.
How many of those calls, you mentioned mutual aid calls, how many of those are in the borough? Do you know that number off the top of your head? Or not?
Offhand, I want to say our mutual aid was about 25% of our total call volume,
That might be a little high.
and then maybe it was slightly less. Again, we're just as much as we provide mutual aid, we also receive it on a lot of our incidents as well.
So you're asking for a pretty significant financial investment from the Borough of Conshohocken. What additional benefits do you think this will bring to the community?
Actually, Tina, can I jump in real quick? 'Cause
Sure.
I'm kind of on the same line. So one of the trends we're seeing across the state and really the country is consolidation. So losing local fire departments. How does a facility like this help us avoid that?
I think from neighboring municipalities that we've seen, combining resources, Upper Marion's, a local one, they're all becoming one department. We, like Andy had said, we're ahead of that curve. And again, I'll mention that we have the best of equipment, both apparatus and our gears and our training at this point as well. So I think this facility only helps to keep promoting that and allowing us to be able to expand and grow at that level.
And are we, when we talk about volunteers, are we essentially luring people from other areas because our facilities are potentially the best of the best?
We haven't seen that yet. We're halfway through a SAFER grant on recruitment and retention. We are seeing a steady trickle of people. Some of them actually relocated to this area for work.
Correct.
And have some past experience. We're also seeing some people that are just completely flat-footed, never done this before. Right now, we have I think 4 people with no experience at all that we're working through training on. So I don't think we're really stealing too many people from other fire companies. There has always been a certain amount of crossover. There's people that belong to several fire companies that, depending on who's busy today, that's where they go. But I don't see us as it's called, poaching.
No, I don't think I mean poaching from other fire companies, but volunteers, like people that maybe would go to, a different fire department, but they come here because we have these resources.
The other problem is that, I know we lost a couple to paid departments. A couple guys went to Philadelphia. We had a guy go to North Carolina. A couple went to Allentown. So they can't volunteer at all anymore, requirements of their job. So they move away, obviously, because, coming back and forth to Allentown. So that's a problem too once in a while with retention and recruitment that, these guys, which you don't blame guys and girls want to be full-time firemen.
How about you, Bob?
So, to answer your question, for the ambulance, at our main station, which is in Ardmore, we have over 40 volunteers. Here we have 3. We don't have the housing up here to bring them up there. And generally, the difference between the fire department at times and us is, local residents and things like that may be the volunteers. A lot of our people are coming from a college setting. They're looking to break into the medical world. They want to go to medical school or some type of advanced medical degree. So what we see at our main station is those 40 volunteers that are constantly there, that are brought together. We would hope that a little bit more housing areas, that we would have some bunk rooms and things like that we would be able to house those people and bring them in. We'd like to get people around. We have a very diverse ambulance service in different areas, and we'd like them to move around and try these different areas. And I think this would bring more volunteerism to the Conshohocken area.
I took a tour with you guys, and you feel it. You feel how small the facility is. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Tim.
No, that's okay. So you guys are the leaders who are always working with us hand in hand, but you all talked about having your own boards. How have you been interacting? Do you believe that your boards will all be on board with this? Is this something that you've talked about with the boards? I mean, I know historically sometimes the boards don't always agree with the leadership.
On the WashU side, I've already talked to the board. 2 of the board members are here, so our board is on board with it. I mean,
okay.
Just
Yeah, and for number two, our board has discussed it and our membership, it was talked about, and it's, all the conversations have been positive.
I would say the same for Narberth.
Okay.
You started to mention, right, this is a significant investment for the borough. This type of property, what do you expect it to last, right? We've grown to this point, now we need something. All things go well, we move into this facility or this space. What would we expect for a time frame to need to move again or to grow again, or are we limited by this? You see where I'm just trying to see if we're going to put out millions of dollars, what time frame on return on investment are we getting? I mean, in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, are we going to be asking this question again, or is, you know?
I can just speak for number twos. That facility that was built was a 30-year building. It was not built to really expand anything further. And I think that as this process progresses and we have the ability to design the facility jointly, it allows us to be able to expand there. I mean, to put an exact date to it, I would think anywhere from a 50 to a 60-year building without major updates.
Okay.
And I think that's pretty much in turn with a lot of, local firehouses that have been recently built.
I mean, we've been here 150 years. So from 1874, 1874, we were at 15 West Hector Street, which is the hotel today. We were there until 2000, or no, I'm sorry, we were there until 1985 when we built, if you're looking at our firehouse, left side, right side facing. And then in 06, 07, we built that other section, just duplicated it to make it 3 to 6 bays. But from 1874 until 1985, we were at West Hector Street. But we also had 5 bays there, and then we had the old police station too. If you remember, the police station was next to it, and we used to put a vehicle in rescue in the old police station. We had a garage off the side there. So, yeah, we're 150 years, but I kind of how we were talking about.
So you're expecting this to be 50, 60-year facility type situation?
I believe absolutely.
At least, if not more. It all depends on.
You're here for the bar.
I think we're gonna, are there any other questions?
I was going to say, do we have any other questions from council?
Well, public comment, they'll have an opportunity at the end, Joyce. Hold on.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Any questions? Well, thank you very much for giving
Just
us.
stay here. We'll just stay where you're at. I'm going to go over some stuff.
Okay.
So I'm going to go from the borough perspective, how we got to this point. So I think our initial conversations about this particular issue was in the 2016, 2017 year when we clearly understood that because of our population growth and other things, we were going to look at a facility at that time, or need a facility. I don't believe that a majority of the people that live in the Borough of Conshohocken understand that these buildings are not owned by the Borough of Conshohocken. I don't believe that they understand that it's a volunteer fire department with few part-time or full-time personnel. Now they will. This is the objective. This is the transparency of this whole issue. So even Narberth Ambulance, there's a lot of people who think Narberth Ambulance belongs to the Borough of Conshohocken because there's a Conshohocken on the side of the ambulance. It's not the case. These are all independent facilities run and maintained by the independent groups that their boards asked them or purchased. So it puts us as a municipality into a little bit of a predicament because we do not have a facility to go into the future with, knowing that volunteerism, we're probably the luckiest municipality in Montgomery County because we have volunteers, we have dedicated volunteers, which is even the more important thing. A lot of dedicated volunteers. You see people here. Andy came from work. He worked a 12-hour shift, and he's here because of how important this is. So we're lucky in that respect. But the trend is the trend, and the trend is moving away from the fact that people aren't volunteering for these positions as much, and they're going to full-time fire departments. We can't put our full-time personnel into a volunteer fire department. And have a relationship. We don't have a facility to put a full-time fire department. By no means does the Borough of Conshohocken intend to switch over to a full-time fire department. That's never been the discussion with me. I don't believe that's there's no consensus on council to even think about anything like that. But we do have to keep that as a consideration long-term. 50 and 60 years on this firehouse, Washington was there for 135. We're not going to build this thing for 50 or 60 years. We're going to look at it to be able to be updated for 100 years. Everybody's kids and grandkids and everything will be going to the same place. It's a location that doesn't need to change. There's no reason for it to change. We first came up, we did research what the other fire departments tried to, or what the fire companies tried to do at one time. And I don't know who said it behind me, but 25 years ago they were talking about this. But so some of the locations that they did talk about, we looked into the possibility to purchase, to come to some type of agreement with those facilities. So the ones that you always will hear is, one that was very popular with the fire companies was Wells Fargo Bank, which is right next to us. So they're owned by Wachovia Bank. There's a lease involved. We'd have to buy out that lease. The building and the property is not obviously sufficient. The building would have to be knocked down, but the property and how it relates to our property, which is we have a 10-foot retaining wall in the back, to try to put a firehouse in that particular location would have been difficult, and I don't even want to guess what financially that would be. But I have an idea on what it would be to buy the building and buy their lease out. We do understand that. So that was one of the locations. 7th Avenue Public Works Garage was a location that's completely off that can't happen there. It's also located in a residential area, which is not something that we want in the future. The Santander building, which is across the street from the CVS, that was another location. Again, it would take a considerable amount of money to purchase that building, to knock it down, and to go through that whole process with them. And again, we have a situation where it's sloped down. To accommodate this kind of facility, it might be difficult. It would be difficult. We did not even consider through this entire process the Moores facility. It was never on the table until recently. We had discussions with Moores after the whole legal process and not the Moores, but Profco, what they wanted to potentially put in that property. And the discussions were very similar to what some of the people that, I guess the Facebook people and all wanted. One of those was, what's that grocery? Trader Joe's. So I think that's the big one that everybody was talking about, Trader Joe's. Well, they came to the table and they had actually been in negotiations with Trader Joe's for 2 years to try to build a Trader Joe's there, and it did accommodate enough parking spaces. They had gone to the entire process with them, renderings, meetings, everything. It just didn't meet the requirements of parking, which was 100 parking spaces. So going through this process with the Wawa and everything, I do recall one of the big issues was cars going in and out of a facility. So we're talking about a Trader Joe's that wanted circulation of parking of 100 cars. Probably would have caused a lot of headaches. So, but that's out. They didn't want to be put. Trader Joe's did not want to put a facility in there, but Profco did try. So, the other facility that they wanted, the other thing that they wanted to put in there, would have required a variance, and probably aesthetically wouldn't be what the borough was looking for in the form of a storage facility. So that's kind of where they were going with it, and that's where the conversation began. whether they had any interest in the Borough of Conshohocken taking the property. So it wasn't like we had a lot of advanced background in this property and what we would do to it. It became an opportunity, and they engaged right away in that conversation with us. So we've been having conversations with them for several months now, back and forth. We did obtain all the documentation of previous geotech site work site inspections that they did, inspections to the building, phase 1 and phase 2s. All those things we have copies of. They were very. It was very easy to obtain them. We've had no issues with them. We had a lot of good conversations about this. The property is about an acre. I don't believe that we can find an acre in the Borough of Conshohocken.
What about down
Sorry?
near the, what about down near the SEPTA station?
The SEPTA station?
A land that's down there.
Okay, so I've heard that before. So if you get an idea, I can feel the heat from the guys behind me. But it is at the lowest point in the Borough of Conshohocken. It's in a floodplain. We probably don't want to put several $1 million of our equipment that would have to be moved to another location during a flood and then moved back in order to address the flood. So it's not exactly what a good. It's also snow and everything else comes into play. But since you did bring that up, that's at the bottom of the hill, and every call that they would go to would be going uphill. Where this is at the top of the hill, and every call that they would be going to would be going downhill. And who cares if it takes forever to get back to the station? Right? So that's that. Just the logistical issues that those are the little things that have been thought out. But that location wasn't considered because of that. We also, the other two locations were obviously the two firehouses. The expansion of number 2, and then looking at Washies. I think much better than I could ever do, the people behind me articulated how much of an issue that would be. Because Washies is perfect for what we're using it for. Washies has been nothing but a great partner in this whole thing, and we want to continue that partnership because they're at a perfect location. They're a block away from almost a majority of our population when it all comes down to it. And they house those items which would need to be brought out, sent to a location, and done in a hurry. And so they play an integral part in how this is all set up. So that relationship would not change whatsoever. But as far as running, where are we at? 2,595 calls out of Washies with ambulance and fire, probably not a good idea. The intersection there, everybody knows about the intersection. We also have the SEPTA train station there that is connected to all the lights on Elm and Fayette Street. So when there's a train going through Harry Street or the Oak Street crossing, that does change the timing on the lights. So now having 2,595 responses out of that building, which would cause the emitters in that intersection to change, which would then change everything. I think PennDOT would have a headache trying to make that work. But that's one of the big reasons. Other than that, the relationship is good. With what we were using it for, even though it's bursting out at the seams. And we didn't even bring up the fact that we have fire police. So fire police were using that facility. Fire police were using one vehicle to block off both sides of a road. They were parking a vehicle at one end and walking up to the other end to block off a road during an accident. Now they have 2 vehicles, and they have people in order to occupy them. So fire police are also in that facility. So number 2. Number 2, we've looked at what's around number 2. We've had conversations with the buildings, the people who own those buildings around number 2, to see what the possibilities are. There's very little interest in trying to do anything with the purchase of anything next to that, to expand that property. And one thing we really didn't talk about, but you could see it just from the picture, is there's nowhere to park. So if you have a large incident and you need 10 volunteers show up, they have to hope that it's not this time of the day because there's no street parking. They have to park on the apron or Harry Street or figure out how to park. So there actually is no set parking for number 2 at all, except for their apron. And you can see that the apron's in bad shape, but leaving that all aside, the building itself. You saw that the inside of the building, that is the office that they run out of. That's not what in 2024 the municipality is looking to represent itself.
Can that go up?
Would
it make any difference?
There is issues with that.
There is.
Yeah. It wasn't designed for that, put it that way. The building wasn't designed for it. It was designed to be what it is. More than likely, a majority of it, if not all of it, would have to be knocked down in order to put something else there. Okay?
What's the acreage on number 2? Do you know?
I don't know it offhand.
Less than half, I believe.
Less than half an acre?
Yes.
Those are the locations that we were looking at. This opportunity came up for this location at Moores. The discussions began with Narberth Ambulance because Narberth Ambulance had come to us with potentially, if we ever did make any kind of move, to combine the ambulance and the fire in one building. So we already had discussions prior to this with Narberth Ambulance, and we were kind of looking for the same thing. We just needed somewhere to put it. So Narberth Ambulance, I went to their board meeting. They were very interested in it. Obviously, there's a lot of questions, but the questions all occur on the building side, not the location and not the property. The location and the property were never really an issue. The issue became the building and, who gets what, how, all the things that you have to figure out when it comes to this stuff, which is the next headache, put it that way. The fire department was great, number 2. We wanted to make sure that all of this was disclosed, so they knew where we were going with this, the potential that we were looking at a property. They had come to us in a meeting in January was it? January, to discuss this very issue, the fact that they were bursting out at the seams, and what was the borough's intention on going forward with the fire company, we didn't really discuss the fact that we had already been in conversations with other locations, never with this one, but other locations to try to put it somewhere else. But those conversations really didn't go anywhere. It was a very easy conversation. It was informative. They got some feedback, what their concerns were. And again, it's going towards the initial conversation was the property, and it's going towards the building side, which is, again, down the road. We talked about the logistics. From the emergency management perspective, now we have a large facility where we can actually stage. We can actually have an incident command on a location that the borough owns and controls. The building itself, going down the line, we would be considering a lot of things, the things that we can look at from the eco-friendly side. There's nothing to block buildings or anything like that, so obviously we'll be looking at solar and geotechnical possibilities to see what we can do to move us into the next 100 years with a building like this, at least have the infrastructure there for it. We could also sponsor in that particular location community events. The back of it is the A-field. So I don't think that there's a better location that without having to go into traffic. People could go right from the firehouse right to the A-field. There's a lot of conversations about how that would look in the future, but again, that's input from everyone, but it is a great location for that. And then it also can house 20, we'd have the ability at that point to have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week fire department, if that's what we ended up having. Whether that's 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. The volunteers, when we have a big event, they talked about the flood. I think they pulled 124 people out of the Marriott at 5 a.m. in the morning. So, the thing that they're not giving themselves credit for is not one person got hurt or killed in the biggest flood that we ever had, and they took 124 people, mostly by boat, across a flood, an 8-foot flood on the roadway at 5 a.m. So they are very, very dedicated. They deserve to have something, the best equipment. I don't necessarily pay any attention to those people who have an opinion on things like toys, because they're not the ones who are dealing with these kind of things. The group that we have is extremely dedicated, and I think we need to look at a facility that shows them that we want them to continue to do what they're doing. And I can tell you from the perspective of what's going on now that you see what's going, full disclosure, if it's not this facility, that doesn't mean this stops. We're going to have to do this somewhere. So somewhere is, if you can find me an acre in the Borough of Conshohocken, I'll be glad to go look at it. What you're going to be doing is potentially knocking down one facility and knocking down another facility, 2 smaller facilities, in order to put what you can put in this location, because we just don't have it. We just don't have it. And I'm sure everybody's looked at the real estate market in the Borough of Conshohocken. It's not like nobody wants to give us their properties. They're not going to give it away. So we're dealing with them now. It's been a good conversation. We've had no issues so far. And everybody that you see behind me has been on board and notified and had a discussion and had the opportunity to discuss it with their people. So that term transparency that you hear all the time, it's there. It's a transparent situation. We needed to get it out to the public, and this was the opportunity to get it out to the public. And I think that's all I have. Do you have anything?
Okay, so at this point, if there's any other questions specifically for first responders, we'll take them now from elected officials. If not, we're going to switch over to the kind of the legal and financial component of the process.
Does council have any other questions related to what we've been presented with? I just want to say thank you to all of you who took the time after 10-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts to sit here and be able to express what it is that you need to do your jobs well to keep our community safe. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nope. All right, so in the essence of time, we're going to move right into the discussion on the draft agreement of sale with Provco Pineville Fayette. I will turn this over to Nicole Norcross, who will discuss the terms of the agreement of sale that we have in front of us.
Good evening, Borough Council. So we are putting together a draft agreement of sale. I will say this is still very preliminary in its stages, so I'm just going to highlight the big important terms. Right now, the purchase price for the Moore property is $5.1 million with a $25,000 deposit due within 5 business days after the agreement is signed. The due diligence period we currently outlined is 120 days. The borough can terminate the agreement at any time within that window for any reason or no reason whatsoever and get back the deposit. The reason for the lengthy due diligence period is we received a part of our preliminary due diligence, the Profco's old existing environmental reports. And those indicated that further testing might want to be done because of the age of the structures. There may be contamination. So we've advised the borough, should council want to move forward with acquisition, they should obtain a phase 1 and phase 2 testing so we can fully evaluate what type of remediation, if any, needs to be done in order to acquire the property for its intended use. Moving through that, so closing would occur after that agreement within 60 days after due diligence ends, or the conclusion of any type of environmental remediation that needs to be done. So the later of those to occur. The conditions to closing are obtaining financing satisfactory to the borough should it wish to finance the purchase of the property, clean environmental reports or full compliance with any remediation plan required for the property, and good and marketable title. If any contingency is not satisfied, the borough has the option to either terminate the agreement and receive a full refund of the deposit, or waive such contingency and move forward with the acquisition. And that is where we're at the current stage of the agreement of sale.
And Nicole, just to confirm, so a draft agreement of sale with those draft terms has been sent over to Profco's legal team?
Correct.
Okay.
And we're awaiting feedback from their legal team on these terms.
Great. And that includes the 3 parcels in question?
Correct.
The 1109 Fayette, 1119 Fayette,
And
the
1201
White Marsh.
Butler.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Any questions on the agreement of sale?
And they were the 3 parcels that were up for the Project Wawa way back when. Okay.
Can you repeat, what's it down payment?
$25,000 is the deposit.
And we're confident that 120 days for the full environmental clean bill of health is enough, right?
We are. So the phase 1 we anticipate would take around 30 days. We advised borough, should council want to move forward, to simultaneously order a phase 2. That's what Profco had done the testing, so that way we're not waiting for the phase 1 to be completed before a phase 2 analysis is done. And that one would take around 45 days. So you still have a window of time to decipher what kind of environmental remediation, if any, would need to take place during due diligence.
Any other questions on the agreement of sale draft?
I just have a question on, Profco submitted over the years many designs for their property. Do you think that their surveys were accurate and that we can look at them and take those as the measurements?
So I haven't seen copies of their surveys yet. We request them as part of our due diligence process, so I can't answer that question specifically. But during due diligence, we can certainly evaluate their surveys and obtain our own to figure out, what building and what projects will fit best in that parcel.
Right, because fortunately, it is in the Dropbox for the borough, and I have a lot of spare time, so I did pull it up. And, it's an enormous piece. Ray mentioned it an acre, but they put it as 1.43 acres, including all 3 properties. So, I did have some questions on that.
Well, we will be engaging our engineer.
Yeah, I would too.
To double check the documents that come in, including the environmentals.
Okay, cool.
They did do a phase 1 and phase 2 already. Profco. And our engineering is looking at it. But we've already initiated a second.
Basically, we're not going to rely on the documents that Profco would provide to the borough. We'll utilize them as a comparable, but we'll be doing our own due diligence, so that Kathleen, I can give you more documents that you can look in your Dropbox and make sure you agree with them.
I'll look forward to that.
I think it was 1,480 pages last time. It's on my desk if you want.
Make an appointment.
It's amazing.
Anything else on the agreement of sale?
The number 5.1,
Yes.
how did that come about?
You want to discuss that?
It came about through the negotiations. We had a number, they had a number, we settled at 5.1.
So there were already negotiations done to get it to that number?
Yes, there were.
Okay. Any other questions? Ralph? Any? Stace? Good. All right.
All right, so since Nicole is sitting right next to me still, there are certain resolutions that would need to be executed in addition to the agreement of sale. So do you want to just talk about the two that we have in front of us this evening?
So like Steph mentioned, we prepared 2 resolutions that would be needed if the Borough Council were to decide to move forward. The first is a property acquisition authorization resolution. This just authorizes the borough to approve the agreement of sale, which would attach the final form of agreement of sale to that resolution. This also authorizes the expenditure of funds for purchase of the property, incidental costs, ordering title, survey, due diligence materials. And lastly, this resolution authorizes the proper officers and officials of the borough to take such action as necessary to effectuate the purchase and transfer of title to the property to the borough.
So it's basically a logistical resolution in order for the sale to actually go through, if that's the direction we go in. And then the debt reimbursement resolution.
Yes, so the second resolution we prepared was in anticipation, if the Borough Council decides to move forward, if they decide to obtain financing for the purchase and issue a note for the purchase price of the property. So this resolution simply authorizes, declares the borough's intent to issue a general obligation note, and the proceeds of that note will be used to reimburse the borough for expenditures paid before the issuance of that note. So expenditures in the nature of due diligence materials, any type of, costs necessary in acquiring the property. Those would be reimbursed from the proceeds of that note, in addition to financing the purchase price of the property.
Any questions on that resolution? Anything else for Nicole? Okay, then we'll go into discussing actual financing options for consideration. And we have, in essence, 2 options. You have the option to finance the acquisition through a general obligation note. We have received draft terms if you want to go through your current borrower, which is Fulton Bank. Fulton Bank has your current general obligation notes. They are the holder. So they have offered 5, 10, 15-year options. The general obligation notes would be tax exempt. The 5-year rate is 5.85%. The 10-year rate is 5.87%. The 15-year rate is 5.99%. Of course, those numbers they move with the market, so they'll change if the acquisition does go through, but that's basically their temporary offer at this point. It's just important to note that if you're looking at your other general obligation note that you have outstanding, that is in the amount of $8.7 million. You have about 15 years left on that current loan. You have 2 general obligation notes outstanding. One is now we did refinance in that 2021-2022 timeframe. So you have an interest rate of 1.6% and 2.69%. But if you look at the interest rates across the market, what Fulton has offered you is a pretty good offer at this point. Again, but that is if you want to go the financing route. You do have that option. You have the borrowing capability per the governmental accounting standards. So it's definitely an option if that's what you want to consider. You would take out an additional loan. You would finance it. And then you would add on to your annual debt service payments through your debt service fund. Questions on that option? Anything you want to add?
No, I think
Okay.
you covered it.
Okay, and then the other option is a cash offer, acquisition of the land through cash. So that would be 5.1 million that would come out of your operating funds, your capital reserve. So if you're looking at your cash asset position as of the end of May, somehow we're in June, you're looking at a cash asset position of roughly 34 million. So you'd be drawing down 5.1 of that 34 if that's the route you would like to go. Keep in mind that when you're talking about financing versus cash, I can give you your cash asset position, but that doesn't account for your capital assets. And when I mean by capital assets, I mean like your fixed assets as opposed to your cash assets. So just to give you the full picture, at the end of 2023, your fixed assets were roughly 43.4 million. So if you're looking at your fixed assets and your cash assets and you're trying to put this acquisition, up for consideration, you can handle this. The borough can handle an acquisition of this nature at that amount. If it has been evaluated by your treasurer, your CPA, there are no issues if you want to go the cash route. An understanding that the borough we are lucky to be in a financial position that is sound. And if you're looking at it from a fixed asset point of view, your assets depreciate annually. And when it comes to land, you don't have that depreciation. So at the end of the year, when you're looking at it from an audit perspective, where you have to account for the depreciation of your fixed assets, this acquisition will be part of your overall fixed asset class without having to factor in the depreciation, because the land, in fact, will not depreciate. It will actually appreciate as you go. So while we are looking at an immediate transaction from a financial perspective, you've heard from your emergency management personnel tonight the public safety aspect and what they see for the future and what they need for the future and what they're requesting for the future. And when you're looking at it from a financial transaction perspective, you're talking about 5.1 million, whether you want to go the financing route or the cash route, but there's also an impact financially. And there will be additional costs when you're talking about the construction of a facility and the operation of a facility, but those are long-term items that get built into your operations, knowing full well that you have a cash asset position and a fixed asset position that can handle an acquisition of this nature.
Stephanie,
Yes.
what would we really end up paying if we go with the borrowed capital?
If you ask me to amateurize the full percentage, I did not prepare that for this evening. If you want to go that route, then I will provide an amortized schedule of what it will end up costing. If you're going to ask what my recommendation is, and I know that Nicole, from a legal perspective, will probably disagree with me, and that's her job to disagree with me, because she's thinking of, if you have the opportunity to finance it, why not take that opportunity? And she's right in the legal advice that she has provided. If I'm looking at our assets across the board, which is what we do on a regular basis, I think you have to consider the cash offer, especially considering the fact that it's cash going out, but it's an asset coming in, and you'll have a return on that investment. Sorry, Nicole.
I mean, the objective is we're a non-for-profit type of entity, so we should be reinvesting in ourselves.
We are we are reinvesting in ourselves. You saw from the presentation this evening that you have reinvested in your public safety services. they are now asking for a much more significant investment that will last, as Andy Carlin demonstrated this evening, 150 years, that will serve generations of borough residents and businesses.
So this is a question to council and to you. We're looking at, we can take the loan out or we can use cash. We're then going to have to build a building and put that in there. Is it going to be more prudent and easier for us to take the note and then we have the capital to immediately start doing whatever we need to do building-wise because we have that available? Or do we drop that cash and then worry about financing on the back end of the building?
I think that's where I was going with that. What the percentage, I mean, what will we pay out over time versus the cash? And would it balance out with the building?
We'll prepare, I mean, we don't have what the potential costs would be to construct a facility. I mean, I think we were.
I mean, is it going to be easier for us to build a facility if we have the cash on hand? We can immediately just say, this bill comes in,
I
we
think
can pay the
either way,
cash.
you're going to be looking at, you'll be financing. So is it financing 5 million? We don't need an answer tonight, but those are the types of
That's the
questions that will be in front of you if you decide you want to go through with the acquisition. When do you want to, will the market look the same as it does today when the facility gets to get built? I mean, we saw it with this building. There's always the opportunity to refinance at a rate, which is amazing. But you also have partners like Fulton who are constantly evaluating, and Obermeyer has financial consultants and as well that are evaluating the market to determine when it's appropriate to refinance. So we're not so much worried about that portion of it. But yes, at some point you will be financing. It's a matter of when you want to finance.
So Steph, you talked about at the end of 2024, our assets were about 43.4 million.
Yes, and
if we purchase this with cash, then would that bump technically our assets up to 48.5 million? And then is that a better number to work with a bank on financing? You know, I'm coming from it from an A rating, B rating type of perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I'll rely on the actual financial authorities and the experts. But yes, when we have looked in the past at our borrowing ceiling, what that there is a cap, and it's based off of DCED regulations. Yes, they will look at your full capital asset pictures, but will include your cash assets as well. So it's a give or take. Now I can't, by the time we're looking at that financing, if your fixed assets have increased and your cash is, I can't say that our cash will have decreased because that may increase as well.
So it's really at a point in time.
It's a point in time where you're capturing your financial picture.
And you can't say we're on the border of one category to the next anyway.
I can't. I know that the last time we looked at a financing opportunity, you're basically in that like $30 million cap opportunity, but you already have, 8.7 tied up of that 30 million. So it'll be a picture taken at the time where you're going to be looking at that debt.
Any other questions from council?
Anything you want to add to that? Anything that I missed? Okay.
Can I ask for public comment at this point?
Oh yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, so we've heard a lot tonight. We have some public comment, I think, that Joy wants to come up and ask some questions, and probably Mary does now too. The other thing I would do is invite all of our residents to please reach out to your council members, to ask questions, to have conversations. There are no votes tonight, but this seems like it's a swiftly moving opportunity for this piece of property, and we heard that we've looked at other properties that are not readily available. So we really are looking for the questions and comments from our residents related to this. So come on up, Joy.
Okay, my name's Joy Manis, and I was hoping the guys would still be there here because they mentioned something that is, I haven't heard get mentioned here. You're talking about a property that's, let's just say, an acre plus, okay? And you want to make that for your public service. Well, we have the West Country, we have the Country, and we have the Washies. And everyone's already saying, well, we would keep the, the stuff down towards Washies because Washies is closer to the river, which makes sense. But then are all this, if all the state, if all the public safety works is staying in the buildings that they're in, now we're making another building. So those.
They didn't say that they're all staying. They basically said that they would use that for the water rescue, and the other services would be at the new location.
So number 2 in Narberth would potentially, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that better? Number 2 in Narberth would be looking to sell their facilities, so they wouldn't still be operating out of there.
Even the main one that's further away that has the 20, or just the one, the smaller location?
Just the one in Conshohocken, and not in terms of Narberth.
Okay.
Just the Conshohocken station.
So
and
they
then
would go
Washington Fire Company would remain part of the overall public safety umbrella, but would be utilized mostly to store equipment specific to the river.
They also run a private business out of that facility, so I don't think that they want to give up their private business, which is why they would keep their facility.
I understand, but,
Yeah.
everyone's keeping what they want because they own the property, which is fine, but Conshohocken's looking to put out $5.1 million.
But they're not looking to. So number 2 in Narberth would be selling their properties and moving to the public safety facility.
But would the sale of the property go to Conshohocken to help offset the $5.1 million?
There potentially, that could happen, but we haven't engaged in those conversations at this point.
Well, that was just something that I felt that each one could give me a different perspective. I think it sounds like a great idea. I'm not saying no to it. I'm just thinking, you're going to make a really big facility so it can be around for 50, 60 years until you need a bigger facility. But I was just curious of we were going to leave Washies because they're closest to the river, so they would store the water rescue stuff.
Well, they own their building, so they have decided that they don't want to sell their building.
Okay, right. Okay, well, that's fine.
They don't have a large group of volunteers, but today their volunteers operate out of number 2. So right
On
now,
Third Street, okay.
their facility is a storage facility for equipment.
Okay.
And we pay them a certain amount of dollars to be able to store equipment in their owned facility.
Okay.
Okay?
And then Conshohocken's staying where they are.
No, they're selling their facility.
They're selling. And then
Narberth.
Number 2 is looking to, number 2, the one on Fayette Street, is looking to liquidate theirs, if they can. They're going through the legal process and looking into that.
Okay.
Narberth ambulance discussions would be that they would look into selling their property on Apple Street and potentially leasing a space from us. So we would have what's called the return on our investment. So we'd have a steady income from someone who is leasing space from us. And there are other options for that. Number 2 could possibly have that option, but the discussions so far have been for one to liquidate and for the other one to liquidate the property that they own, move in, and lease space from us.
And what would West Country, they own their building?
West Country, I don't know what you mean, West Country.
West Conshohocken is not involved in any of this.
Well, I saw the chief, and he's on the
No,
board.
he works as a police officer in West Country.
West Conshohocken.
Right.
He's the president of Washies Fire Company.
Okay, I was just trying to put it together of where he's from. Okay. Well, like I said, it sounds wonderful. I did like it. With those glass panes, I think if it stays that way, it could look beautiful. Is it big enough for everything as things get bigger and bigger? Will it?
Yes, there's an NFPA standard. I don't think we could fill that facility with what, and if it's a fire department standard, we have the equipment now that we could go into the next 10, 15 years for that.
All right, because one guy said, I think he was standing here the most, said something about, on this certain equipment, it turns over faster than other equipment. I think it was paramedics, is that what he?
That's
Okay.
that's Narberth ambulance, yes.
Okay, well, I'm for it, so whatever you decide on, knock yourselves out. The last question is, I know Conshohocken pays for it. I'm sure you'll get money from I don't know how it's going to get paid, but are taxpayers in Conshohocken going to start to see anything on a tax bill to say that we now have to pay more taxes to build this and to put the kitty back where it was?
Right now, in terms of the land acquisition, which is all we're talking about this evening, no.
Okay. All right. Well, that was everything. Thank you
If
for
you don't-
listening to me.
If you don't mind, just to, I think, reassure you, and to speak for the others up here, I guarantee you, we are going to do the best we can to get the best value for all of this, right? There's one thing to say that we need it, we found it, it fits. It's another thing to work hard between all of us and the administration to say, we're going to do everything we can, because I live here, I pay taxes too, so it matters to me. So, and I'm sure I speak for all of us.
I'm sure, but it's still a question, it's like an elephant in a room.
And this is why we want you to come up and ask the question, so you give me the opportunity to respond and say, absolutely, I'm going to do everything I can to get the best deal, the best value we can for this.
I'd like to hear that. Thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Joy, if you really want to be taxed, I can send you a bill.
No, I don't want to be taxed. You're taxing me enough. Utilities are going up. Everything's going up.
Wasn't that the truth? Mary's here, and thank you, and thank you for all the information, and thank you for your questions. You helped with some of mine. I still have a question on the ambulance and the 450 turnover every year. And it goes to, Tina, you had asked a good question about some people saying, do we have too many toys or the toys? And to me, it seems you've heard or seen this criticism that's been out there. And I think that that's a fine line for us as citizens and taxpayers. We don't know the costs and what everything entails. And it seems like it's more and more equipment. And so I'd like to know, is this comparable for other municipalities our size? I recognize if it's your family, yourself, anybody in an emergency, you hope for the best and you want the quickest response times. And I recognize that's a hard balance for the emergency staff and firefighters and emergency management to coordinate. But I doubt that I'm the only one with that question. Looking at what are we looking, when you're looking at the equipment, it must be frustrating hearing as like, oh, Conshohocken getting more toys when you're coming at it from a safety perspective. But I think it might not be phrased the most tactfully, but it's coming from a sense of,
Sure.
how,
And
why do
that's
we need all of that?
That's why I wanted to put it out there, because I wanted the professionals to talk about the tools that they need to do their job in the century we're in today.
Mm-hmm.
So what I can say from my perspective, I started council 8 years ago. We had no tools. We had minimal tools. We had fire departments using out-of-dated equipment. So by the funding that we're supporting these volunteer fire companies with today, we were able to help them get equipment that it is at least up to the standards of that time. And I think what we're finding in our assessments of all of our departments, we were behind the times for a very long time. With the income that we have from all of our development, we have a wonderful opportunity to get to the point where we are at the times and actually ahead of the time. So if you ask us, do other municipalities have what we have? No, they don't, because they aren't in the same financial situation as we are. And we are investing in the public safety piece of our community. I don't know if anybody else wants to add to that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to add to that. So the other piece of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, right, we don't put the money out for the ambulance services. That comes through Narberth.
It comes through Narberth.
So that's not part of our expenses. Okay. We're also in a unique opportunity because even though we're a square mile, we sit on a river, which is prone to flooding, and we now have buildings that are much higher than they used to be. So we need to make sure that those are two very unique areas where we need to make sure that our emergency services are equipped to handle emergencies around those situations. So a lot of the equipment that they have purchased is because of those specific unique pieces that we have here in town. So that's all I wanted to add.
Thanks.
I just came from a conference and listening to the other boroughs talk about how they're struggling just to get volunteers. We are one of the most impressive ones here within the state, because now they're looking at us and saying, how are you doing it? How are you retaining people? And it's really important for us to maintain that so that others can learn from what we're doing. And there are a few boroughs that are on the river, but most of them are landlocked and alone, so they have to count on other people. So we've become a really good focal point for other volunteer fire companies.
And those are wonderful things. I guess, from my perspective, look, I've had years ago, when you are calling for a family member, you want the quickest response time. We all understand that.
Yeah.
But it's also, the balancing of how do we take care of these safety needs, but also be financially prudent, because, you have people of all different income levels here, and even a good income level with prices going up for everything, people are feeling it. So thank you on that one. And I guess one other question. So all the equipment, Conshohocken owns that, not Washies or number 2?
Correct.
Okay. And are there expectations to have these kind of budget expenditures for the equipment ongoing, or like now that we're caught up, I don't know, is there going to be like another $500,000 every year for?
Can I just clarify something? Not all the equipment is owned by the borough.
It is not.
It is
Oh,
not.
okay.
The trucks, some of the
Fire
equipment.
trucks are owned by some of the fire equipment is owned by the actual companies themselves.
Okay.
What this also opens up is grant opportunities that we never had before, because we never had a fire station. We never had full-time membership. We have now a single number, Station 55. We have 2 fire companies operating independently, trying to get independent grants. So a lot of the opportunities that are out there, both federal and state, will come hopefully to us if they're available. That is something that we never had before. Narberth Ambulance independently spends that money on their own. They're a nonprofit. They have to replace that equipment, but they also have to maintain the properties that they're at now. The 2 other fire companies have to do the same thing. They have to maintain our equipment, which we pay for, but their volunteers are maintaining the equipment. In other words, they have engineers on staff as volunteers that come in and wash the fire trucks. They have people that are there cutting the lawn. So we are not in a position to not have a professional fire service and emergency services. We're not in a position like that anymore. Luckily, the majority of our professionals are volunteers. They're not just volunteers, they're professionals. They do things that professional firemen do within this country, and they do it very well. Like I said, 124 people, biggest flood we ever had. Not one person was hurt, one person was killed. Some of these guys were in the water for 6 hours doing this stuff. So it is, there's a fine line between cost and what's cost effective, and we do need, everything has changed. We have to look at things like this new fire station, whether we have to put in an infrastructure for an electric fire truck sometime. It might be mandated that we have to. So all of these things come into play. We certainly don't want to spend $250,000 at number 2 to put in equipment to put in an electric fire truck and then find out that we can't fit anything in there. We're not in that position. So everything's been evaluated through the emergency services, as everybody in this room knows. This was one of the final things for the emergency services when it comes to fire, emergency management, and ambulance. We're lucky we have a great ambulance crew like Narberth Ambulance. We're not immune to any of the things that you see in our society right now. We have 30-second responses for someone who overdoses on fentanyl here. what you don't hear about is how many times our police officers save people's lives with the AED equipment that we have here. We have 14 or 15 AEDs in the cars. Not every municipality has that. We have them in our public works trucks. And we have people that are trained to use them. That's the objective we have here. And you, as a resident here, should feel very confident in the fact that if you ever were to need any of those services or anybody in your family, it wouldn't take 20 minutes for somebody to show up. You might have a volunteer fire chief with an AED in his vehicle that lives 10 blocks away and he's there in 30 seconds before the ambulance gets there. That's what we have. It's a dedicated group of people that deserve to get the attention that they haven't gotten for a long time.
When I ask these questions, I am in no way questioning their dedication or showing any lack of appreciation on that. I have such admiration for anybody doing what they do, the risk, the cost to themselves, the time away from their family. So any of these questions is not casting any aspersions on them or anybody on that.
I do want to make sure that you understand that the cost portion of this wasn't addressed in this municipality for years. And eventually it was going to get to the point where it had to be addressed. We use the analogy about kicking the can down the lane. That has probably happened in multiple departments in this municipality, that nobody wants to give the current administration any kind of gratitude for the fact that we've brought this into a place where it needs to be. It wasn't real great 10 years ago.
No, it's been this council, it's been prior councils, it's been staff, it's been getting grants that you all have done. It's been a long process, and people appreciate it. And for lack of all the understanding on the details, you're right. We probably don't all know that because it hasn't been shared, and that's why it's good to get this information. I did have a question. How many career and staff people are we looking at?
We have 3 careers of fire person. We're hoping to get at least 1 more soon, and we have sometimes up to about 6 part-time people. Some of them, we have 2 Reading firefighters who are full-time Reading firefighters who work on our crew, who are all EMTs. We have a White Marsh paramedic who works at our fire department. We were able to recruit, because of the volunteer staff and the personnel that we have, we were able to recruit these people because they see that they're going to be working with a good group of people. The QRS program where our fire trucks go to ambulance calls, every one of them is an EMT. The value of having someone get there quick, I think anybody in any profession, especially a nurse or anybody in the medical profession, will understand the value of somebody like an EMT getting there quickly and having the equipment to handle these situations is very important. And that was an emphasis that this council had for now 10 years. And it seems to be getting addressed. This is just one of those things.
Getting addressed, and in part, there wasn't the revenue 10 years ago. I mean, it is all building. So, I know, Tina, you've been on for years. I know Anita, I don't know everybody's length of their terms. I know that you've all been trying, and we appreciate that.
And I think, Mary, where we're at, and I think you heard today with the capital assets at $43.4 million, that's a nice chunk to be able to then set aside what strategy will be for the future, right? So we may decide that there's a certain number that we never want to go below in that, so that we know that there's always something for the future to build on, where we may not have had that when we first came into council, but we have the opportunity to set up what our future looks like for our borough.
We need a rainy day fund.
Right.
Then also when you have that money, you know, then the push is, well, wait a minute, why do taxes go up, and why do we have stormwater? You know, that's also the
Absolutely. And what I want to point out is I want people to come to that end of year budget review and tax review when we go over the next year's budget needs and tax needs. And what you'll learn is the taxes that you pay for your services in Conshohocken are basically $50 a month. Where your taxes are going right now is the school taxes. So you have a very low borough tax, And we're not looking to make that sky high. But we also can't artificially keep it low as we move along with more services. We are fortunate that we have a lot of other revenue that comes in that can help support some of these things and some of these funds to keep this going. And that's really, I think, what our vision is to make sure that we are giving high-quality services at the most cost-efficient mechanism we can to keep our taxes at a reasonable living. And
Yeah, 'cause
it's
we
hard
live
right
here too.
now.
We get
It's
that,
hard
right?
right now.
Yeah.
It's hard.
No, it's a hard balance, and then,
Just to be mindful, so public comment is 2 minutes, and we're way past that, so.
okay. Well, now in fairness, some of this was Ray's
Yeah.
comments.
I'm removing him from that equation, so if there's anything else, just.
I did have a question
to wrap it
about
up.
the appointment of special counsel. I guess it's Obermeyer, for Obermeyer to handle this, okay. I guess if it goes through and being close to the property there, and, I think this sounds great. I have, just the concerns, like, my first reaction was, wow, this is great, because I had concerns of what would be there otherwise. But, I'm not raising questions just for me, just from talking with other people who couldn't be here. Money is always a concern, and, is there a need for this? And I think that folks address that well if people have the opportunity to see the video. I have a concern about, if we're going to have even more from Narberth there, or more trucks, ambulances in the one facility, the noise impact for us. Again, I want people to get the help they need. Will that be able to be addressed, that it's not, I don't even know how they can do that, just that it's one of the ones in a more residential area,
They've
minimizing
discussed that, and there are ways for them to limit kind of the noise at certain hours of the day. They'll be mindful of their location, just like number 2 is now.
Yeah.
So it's already happening in terms of how they operate it, and that will continue moving forward. And understand, Mary, that when we're talking about just the land acquisition, if we're talking about the building structure, there'll be committees and discussions and input, public forums, and everything that's going to happen for that next step, but for right now. But just to, yes, these individuals here that were here tonight, they address the noise now where they're located, and they'll continue to do that moving forward.
And then thank you. I have one last question before the thought of the building, which is, going to be a huge one. You're going to hear, I'm sure, a lot of comments on that. Has there been any cost attached or any indication from Provco about any remediation costs that might be there? Because being an old car dealership, there could be a lot of potential contaminants, as you said. Are there any estimates for that so far?
We've looked at the phase 1, phase 2. Our engineer can speak to any concerns that they might have.
Yes, so again, we haven't done any testing ourselves as a borough engineer, but just looking at the reports that Provco had provided, the remediation would probably be either removal of soils or capping, or a combination of the two. For the loads that would be anticipated for the building and the equipment there would be, like any site that's built upon an infill site in an urban area, there would be needing soil remediation done to support the load. So again, that would be either removing soils or additional foundation geotextiles to support the loads. But again, that's all standard with this type of site and this type of use. There weren't any red flags in the information that, again, we haven't done reporting.
Okay.
And
Are there
the
any?
groundwater depth is 120 or 135 feet there?
Just top of the hill there, so.
Yeah, so it's not like there could be any groundwater infiltration in that thing, which would then generally bring up a lot of costs.
Okay. All right, thank you all.
Thanks, Mayor. Anyone else for public comment? Okay.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
I gotta figure out where we're at now. Oh, yeah, we still have a meeting to go. All right. Yep, all right, so we'll bring Mike Peters back to his desk, and we'll talk about an ordinance amendment to our food vendor regulations.
Yeah, and this will be much shorter than the last conversation. When the food vendor ordinance was adopted, you had three specially planned districts, SB1, SB2, SB3, all down along the riverfront. You now have where the Syncora building is an SB4 district. Your current regulations provide that food trucks are only permitted in the specially planned districts. That was intentional to keep them down along the riverfront and away from the busier areas of the borough. The SB4 district is in the busiest area of the borough. So the first thing this does is fix that issue by specifying that food trucks are only allowed in the SB1, SB2, and SB3 district. And while we were at that, we updated the ordinance to reflect what you're actually doing, what administration is actually doing when they process those requests. And that is, you must get a food vendor license. You need to have the appropriate licensure from the County Department of Health. You need to have the appropriate insurance. And we're going to do that by resolution so we can update it should your insurance provider require a change. That way we don't have to do another ordinance. That it passed inspection by the fire department, that the applicants submit to a background check. The hour limitations remain the same, 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. And we made it clear that for borough special events or for other events approved by a majority vote of council, the SB1, SB2, SB3, and hour limitations would not apply. So those are the amendments. Again, they fixed the SP issue and then update it so it actually reflects what you're doing today. And that's the ordinance that's proposed.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Peters related to the food truck ordinance? All right, no vote tonight.
Yeah, it's on for discussion this evening. We'll accept feedback, any questions for the next 2 weeks, and then it actually will be on the next agenda, authorization for advertisement. It will then be advertised, and then it will appear on the next agenda in July for consideration for adoption.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving on to manager matters. Stephanie, I think we're going to talk about a couple resolutions.
Yes, we have Resolution 2024-08. So there are two requests that have come in. One is from Chief of Police from a safety standpoint for the installation of a stop sign at the intersection of West First Avenue and Maple Street. And the second request is for a handicap parking space in the area of 10 East 6th Avenue. There is a doctor's office. There is a doctor's office and potentially a new doctor's office going in that location, and this handicap space would help serve those facilities, but it is not specific to those facilities, so it would also be able to be utilized by the other entities that are in that area. And this is a temporary resolution, so it would be, if approved, council would approve the resolution, and then it would be back on your agenda once it's been evaluated by administration, if there are any issues for official adoption, if so inclined. But this evening is just a motion for the temporary resolution.
Any questions related to the resolution?
So the temporary is more of a test case, is
Correct.
what it's used for? Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, hearing no other questions, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2024-08, establishing temporary parking regulations specifically to a stop sign at West First and Maple, and then a handicap parking space in the area of 10th East 6th Avenue?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The next item is a increase in the tax assessment value for 110 Washington Street, which is 7 Tower Bridge. So this property is subject to a TIF, which is a tax increment financing district. They actually sent in to the County Board of Assessment an appeal to lower their tax assessment. The Borough Council did approve the borough manager to go and engage at the County Board of Assessment to fight that request. And we actually won that. Well, we didn't win it. They've now sent in a settlement agreement to raise their tax assessment to the maximum value that is noted in the TIF district. So for this evening, you are approving an increase to the assessment value to the maximum TIF noted value, which is $36,393,500.
Any questions on the
Yes.
item on the agenda? Hearing no questions, could I have a motion to approve a stipulation agreement to increase the assessment value of 110 Washington Street, which is 7 Tower Bridge, to $36,393,500? $393,500.
I will make that motion.
And I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Gerhard Arndt, who was a member of the EAC, no longer lives in the Borough of Conshohocken, and therefore he has submitted his resignation as a member. He did note that he will still be participating, but he just cannot serve as an actual commission member.
All right. Any questions? I have a motion to accept the resignation of Gerhard Arndt from the EAC.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Your borough engineer, Karen McNair, was here, and she would discuss the Sutcliffe Park Trail Reconstruction Project and the Stormwater BMP project, which is required through the DEP. That project has been put out to bid. The bids were received. You saw a bid tabulation. A notice of intent to award was sent to Miko Constructors. They had a responsibility per the borough's responsible contractor ordinance to submit information to our engineers so they could review it to make sure they met the requirements of that ordinance. Karen has completed that review. They do meet the requirements this evening. In front of you is to actually award the bid to Miko Constructors Incorporated.
Any questions related to the Sutcliffe Park Trail reconstruction? All right, hearing none. Motion to award a bid for Sutcliffe Park Trail reconstruction and stormwater BMP project to Mecco Contractors Incorporated in the amount of $1 million. You okay?
No, just, I read something about MECO, and I used to be in the construction field, and I was curious as to why you weren't gonna pull another contractor instead of MECO. Just curious.
We're not public comment.
Yeah, I was going to say, Joy, we're not in public comment. All right, do I have a motion to award the bid to Mecco Contractors in the amount of $1,774,000?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
When would that start?
Start date? Tentative?
Yeah, so it takes about 20 days to get a contract and agreement signed, and after that, we would be getting your submittals, so that would put us right around July 4th, so I'd say early July.
Okay,
Mid-July.
mid-July? Yeah,
July.
let's do that mid-July. Thank you.
All right, next item, consider authorizing the advertisement of an RFP for the construction of a storage facility at the Conshohocken Community Center.
This is a approved capital budget item in your fiscal 2024 budget. The RFP is required because the proposed cost will exceed the bidding threshold, so we are asking for authorization to advertise the RFP. The results from the RFP will be compiled and appear on an agenda in the near future for approval, if so inclined.
Any questions related to the construction of a storage facility? Hearing none, can I have a motion to authorize the advertisement of the RFP for the construction of a storage facility at the community center?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss a request for proposal for marketing services. I'm going to turn this over to both Alan and Stephanie to discuss.
Sure, you can go.
Okay. This is again, a draft for a request for proposals for marketing services. So the borough is looking for a marketing manager to provide marketing services. They would be working directly with in-house points of contacts on our communication team. But we are looking for ongoing services for consistent engagement with the community, mostly to highlight and pursue initiatives and special projects that are happening both borough and community-wide, such as accomplishments, successes, stories, engagement pieces, human interest stories, business highlights. You heard this evening from a group of public safety officers the amount of good work that they do in the community is untapped. I'm just using them as an example. So this really would be a marketing strategy that would be looking at all the different departments and utilizing marketing and management skills and a strategy that can be implemented in-house from this entity to kind of push that information out to the community. And I don't know if you want to jump in.
Yeah, so to add just a couple key points to that. So, I've recently campaigned. I was just sworn in for the first time in January, and the feedback that I got from knocking on people's doors was they loved what was going on in the community. They kept hearing about it after the fact. And how can we hear about it more? How can we get, the idea would be our target market would be our community members. The people live here, work here, and our businesses. So we can kind of bring all of that together in what's going on. Stories about good things that have happened in the community and stories about great things that are coming up to the community. It's kind of the way I've been thinking about this, to sum it up. But it's a way to engage our community members more actively and communicate what we're doing. As Stephanie often talks about, there are certain things that are required by law that our borough website and be posted, and this would engage more of the community and other things. Festivals are, the car show, the Fun Fest, all of those things, and we're seeing more and more outside organizations engaging us and wanting to be involved in our community. So this is a way to start to help with that, to communicate to our community. So
I think it's also aligned with the direction that the borough is going in terms of adopting the Main Street Overlay District, launching a new Chamber of Commerce. And last year we had the small businesses here talking about their Discover Conshohocken, and they just had a great event on Fayette Street. So this is just one other aspect of the direction that the borough is moving. But this is more from like a marketing perspective.
So is the intention to work with a company that has tools and resources that we can learn from, where we're creating a playbook, for lack of a better word, that can be handed to us to do internally?
Yes.
Down the road?
That would be the end result.
Okay.
The hope at the end result is that this is, that we always say that we push information out, but that information, mostly because of the content, is somewhat arguably that it's like dry. It's not, there's
it's statements of facts as opposed to stories.
Statement of facts as opposed to stories. And this playbook would be something that we can use internally forever and continue to evolve with us as we evolve.
Yeah.
Any other
And again,
questions?
this is just I'm sorry.
I think there's just maybe this requires a little clarification, because when people might think of hiring or utilizing a marketing agency, they're thinking of doing that for a business. The borough is a nonprofit. So how exactly does a marketing agency kind of fit into our overall goal with the borough?
So I'll take the first part. What I see in that question is we're not stuck. This RFP is not specifically saying that we want a marketing agency or an advertising agency, or it's also not saying that we only want, a new Facebook page or a new TikTok. It's how to create an overall plan, an overall strategy to better communicate with the borough community. So I don't want to get stuck on, because some of these conversations, sometimes we get stuck on, we'll just update Facebook better. I don't know. It's an overall strategy on how to do this. It could be anybody who has this type of expertise we're looking for to bring that knowledge to us. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think
Okay.
So we're just asking for, requesting proposals. If we don't like them, we don't have to take one.
that is correct.
And the scope's wide enough within there that I feel like we'll see what's out there and determine
Exactly.
what, if any, direction we go with it, because again, if you read through it, it's a very large scope. So to see what comes back, I don't see negatives in it, and we can make the call from then on.
Well,
Yeah.
the timing is specific, because you would, if you want to release the RFP, we would advertise the RFP with the requirement to submit any proposals prior to your budget cycle, because it's going to be a budgetary decision. And you're gonna have a myriad of items in front of you that you're going to be working through in terms of what you're gonna fund and what you're not gonna fund for 2025. This is gonna be one of those items that you'll be considering if in that whole pot.
Right, this is really what does this type of program cost, as opposed to, yes, we're spending money.
Exactly.
Any other questions? Doesn't look like we have a vote on this today.
You don't have a vote, so this was a discussion piece, and then you'll have, your week before the June 18th meeting. The meeting is on Tuesday, June 18th, which we need to make sure we remind everybody at the end of this meeting, is that if there's any feedback, we'll revise the draft of the RFP, and then if you're inclined on the 18th to authorize advertisement of the RFP, then the RFP would go out and we would receive submissions, and then it would come back in front of you for further discussion. Okay?
Thank you.
Great.
All right, next item on the agenda is department matters. We're considering approving the Civil Service Commission Certified Patrol Officer Hire List, and we want to permit Chief Lennon to process a conditional employment offer subject to physical and psychological exam results. Chief Lennon, would you like to come to the podium and just talk? There you go. You're faster than my words.
Speed things up.
Thank you.
I would just like to briefly talk about the hiring process and the hiring challenges that we're having that are not immune to police work. Everyone is feeling the same challenges. So on February 23rd, Civil Service met to certify the process to begin the hiring process for patrolmen. Throughout that time, throughout April, we had a test, and throughout May, we conducted oral interviews, background investigations, polygraph investigations, and last Friday, May 31st, we met with Civil Service again, and we certified a list of 4 officers. On Monday, we lost one of those officers to another department, so we have a certified list of 3 officers. And we started this process with 17 other departments that we participated in a consortium test with, where we had 126 applicants. We had 41 applicants that were eligible for our department because we require Act 120, which is the Police Academy certification. So throughout that process, we ended up interviewing 12 candidates, and we, again, are back to that list of 4 people where we lost 1. So that's where we're at now with the hiring process. So I'm asking you for permission to make conditional offers of employment based upon the results of a physical examination and a polygraph examination.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, that would be for 2.
That's correct.
Any questions from council? All right, thank you. Hearing no questions, do I have a motion to approve the Civil Service Commission Certified Patrol Officer Hire List and permit Chief Lennon to process conditional employment offers subject to final physical and psychological exam results?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is council members and mayor matters. Mayor Aronson, do you have anything this
thank
evening?
I will not drag this out, but we did have the Arts Festival and Car Show on Saturday. went amazing. Every year we just seem to grow and grow and grow. I usually take this opportunity every year to thank council for your support as the festival keeps getting more and more filled and interesting and fun. But also my volunteers, Sarah, who does a ton of work through the nonprofit, and then Masonic Lodge, and then, of course, our amazing staff who we work with all year long to put this together. And we saw police, fire, public works. The whole team was out there making sure we all had a great time and kept everyone safe. So just my yearly huge thank you to everyone, and it's definitely a pleasure working with everyone to put this on every year.
Thank you.
Now I nap for the summer.
Ralph?
It was a great event. That's it.
Beautiful. Stace?
I also had a great time, so thank you very much.
Me too. Kathleen? Anita?
I just saw great cars and I want them all.
Adrian?
That was a great community event. Before that event, I think it was a week before, we also had the EAC East Side cleanup, and we really appreciate everybody who showed up for that. It was great. And we picked up a lot of trash. Thank you, Kathleen. She also showed up with her sister.
Alan? Yeah, I just want to do kudos. You know, we have lots of these types of big events in Conshohocken. This is not what's going on in our area. There are lots of events that are not happening because of what's going on in the environment and in our cities. So for Conshohocken to be able to have these events, to feel safe, and to have our responders, emergency response team talking to us today about what it is, we should be very proud that we are able to continue these types of events from a safety perspective and an enjoyment perspective. And then I just want to announce that our voting meeting for June is on Tuesday, June 18th, because June 19th is Juneteenth, so it's a holiday, and we won't be having business on a holiday, national holiday. Okay? Any public comment? I remembered today before I gavelled it. All right. Hearing no public comment, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.